Welcome to the sleepy universe. Settle in, get comfortable and let this journey guide you to rest. Greek Mythology. Chapter 1: The Birth of the Sky and the Earth. Long, long ago, so far back in time that time itself was only just beginning to breathe, there was nothing. No land, no sea, no shining sky, no warm sun, no soft moon. There was no morning mist, no evening star, no sound of wind in the trees, no song of bird or murmur of river. There was only chaos. Do not picture chaos as we know it today, no storm, no noise, no confusion. This was a deeper, quieter kind of chaos, a vast, endless, silent darkness, stretching in every direction forever. It was a void, empty and still, holding all things and nothing at all, waiting, as it had waited forever, for something to begin. And then, slowly, gently, out of that quiet darkness, two beings came into being. They did not arrive with a shout or a crash. They simply were. First came Gaia, the earth. She rose up soft and warm, her form beautiful and gentle, stretching out broad and kind. She was not yet covered with grass or flowers or forests, nor cut through with rivers or touched by rain. She was a sleeping land, smooth and rounded, resting in the dark, alive in her deepest heart, though she did not yet move or speak. She was the mother of all that would ever grow, all that would ever live upon her breast. And above her, stretching out as far as she reached, came Uranus, the sky. He was vast and deep, dark and glittering, cool and endless. He draped himself over Gaia completely, covering every part of her, touching her everywhere. He was her equal, her companion, and her shadow. Where Gaia was warm and solid, Uranus was cool and vast. Where she was still and soft, he was wide and infinite. They were made for one another, the two halves of a whole, the deep earth and the high sky, resting together in the quiet beginning. Between them, all was still and peaceful. Uranus brought the gentle dark to wrap around Gaia, and Gaia held him up with her strength. They loved one another deeply, and from their union came the first children of the world. First were the Titans, 6 great gods and 6 great goddesses, tall and strong and fair, with hearts as wide as the sky and minds as deep as the earth. There was Oceanus, whose waters would one day circle the whole world, Coeus, the wise, Crius, the steadfast, Iapetus, the far-seeing, Hyperion, who would one day carry light across the heavens, and Cronus, the youngest, the boldest, the one who would one day rule. The goddesses too were beautiful, Thea, bright and shining, Rhea, soft and kind, who would one day be a mother to kings, the Mys, just and true, Mnemosyne, whose memory held every story that would ever be told, Phoebe, gentle and radiant, and Tessis, whose kindness would flow like water to all the world. After them came 3 more children, strange and wonderful, the Cyclopes. Each had only one great eye, bright and glowing, set in the center of his forehead. They were strong beyond measure, and clever with their hands, able to shape things of fire and stone that no one else could ever make. Their names were Brontes, Steropes, and Arges, thunder, lightning, and brightness. They carried the power of storms within them, sleeping still, waiting to be called forth. And last of all came 3 more brothers, the Hecatoncheirs, the 100-handed ones. Each had 50 heads and 100 great arms, and they were mighty as mountains, their strength like the shaking of the earth. They were vast and quiet, gentle at heart, though terrible to behold. Now, imagine this scene, they're in the earliest days of the world. The sky hangs low and soft above the quiet land. Stars are just beginning to sparkle into life, pinned like silver flowers across the dark cloak of Uranus. The air is cool and still, smelling of fresh earth and distant, sweet rain. There are no seasons yet, no winter, no summer, no spring or autumn. Only one long, gentle twilight, soft and gray and gold, wrapping everything in calm. You can walk there, if you like. Your feet sink slightly into the warm, soft soil that Gaia has woven beneath you. There is no sound at all, except the quiet, slow breathing of the world itself, the faint, steady rhythm of Gaia's heart beating deep below, and the soft, endless whisper of Uranus above, his presence brushing gently against the earth like silk. The great children lie sleeping in the hollows of the land, for Uranus, fearful that one day they might grow too strong and take his place, had hidden them away deep within Gaia's breast, where the earth is darkest and warmest. They rest there now, quiet and still, great forms curled like sleeping mountains, breathing slowly, dreaming dreams they do not yet understand. Gaia feels them moving inside her, and her heart aches with love, and with a quiet sadness, for she longs to hold her children, to let them see the light of the sky above. But Uranus keeps them hidden, and so they sleep, waiting for their time to come. Cronus, the youngest Titan, sleeps a little apart from the rest. Even in his slumber, there is something awake in his eyes, a glint of purpose, a quiet strength. He feels the weight of the sky above, and the warmth of the earth below, and he hears his mother's silent sorrow. He does not know yet what he will do, but somewhere in his heart, a promise is already forming, soft as starlight, strong as stone. Above, the stars turn slowly, tracing paths that no one has yet named. There is no sun to blaze across the sky, no moon to rise and fall in her silver course. Only the gentle, endless glow of the early heavens, soft and steady, like the light of a lamp kept burning through the night. All is calm. All is held in the quiet balance of beginning. Gaia and Uranus rest together, earth and sky, mother and father, the foundation and the roof of the world. They do not yet know that things cannot stay this way forever, that all things change, that children grow, that time flows ever onward, like a river sliding toward the sea. They do not yet know that power passes from hand to hand, that even the sky must one day make way for something new. They know only the quiet peace of this first twilight, the soft touch of sky upon earth, the gentle breathing of the children sleeping deep within. So let your mind settle now, as the earth has settled into its soft, warm shape. Let your thoughts drift like the earliest clouds, thin and light and slow. Feel the solid ground beneath you, steady and sure, as Gaia is steady and sure. Feel the cool, quiet air above you, wrapping you round with gentle darkness, as Uranus wraps the world in his care. There is nothing to fear here. There is only beginning, and stillness, and the soft, slow heartbeat of the world waking up. Far below, deep in the earth, the great ones stir faintly in their sleep, 100 arms shifting slowly, single eyes flickering in the dark, golden heads turning upon pillows of stone. They do not wake yet. Not yet. The time has not come. The sky still holds all things close, and the earth still holds all things safe, and all the stories that will ever be told are still resting, quiet and complete, in the hearts of those who came first. Breathe in the cool, sweet air of the early world. Breathe out all your worries, all your haste, all your noise. Let them drift away into the vast, quiet sky above, where they dissolve like mist, leaving only peace. The stars are watching, gentle and bright. The earth is holding you, warm and strong. All is well. All is beginning. And the great, ancient story has only just begun. 2. The cry of the earth and the rise of Cronus. Time moved slowly in those earliest days, soft, unhurried, like a river drifting through mist. There were no seasons to mark its passing, no sun to measure morning from evening, only the slow, steady breathing of Gaia and Uranus, and the quiet, growing weight of the children hidden deep within the earth. As the years folded one into another, the Titans grew tall and strong even in their darkness. Their shoulders broadened, their minds sharpened, and their voices, when they spoke in low murmurs to one another, rumbled faintly through the rock and soil, stirring the very roots of the world. The Cyclopes too grew, their hands gaining skill and strength, their eyes glowing with a strange, inner fire. And the 100-handed ones, a vast, quiet, and powerful, stretched their many arms, and the mountains shifted gently around them, making space for their greatness. Gaia felt all this deep within her being. She could feel her children growing, pressing against the inner walls of the world, longing to see the light, to feel the wind, to stand beneath the stars their father had strewn across the sky. And her heart, which had once known only peace, began to ache with a quiet, steady sorrow. She spoke to Uranus of it, her voice soft as the rustle of grass that had not yet grown. "Our children are strong now," she said. "Let them come forth. Let them see the beauty we have made. Let them walk upon my surface and breathe the air you have woven above. They deserve their place beneath the open sky." But Uranus would not listen. Fear had taken root in his heart, fear that one day, one of his own children would be greater than he was, would cast him down, and take his place upon the highest throne of heaven. So he drew the sky lower, wrapping it tight and close around the earth, and he spoke with a voice like distant thunder, cold and unbending. "They are not yet ready," he said. "They are better where they are. Here in the dark, they cannot rise against me. Here they remain." And with his will, he pressed them deeper still, crushing them against the very foundations of the world. The earth groaned beneath the weight. Great cracks opened in the soil. Mountains rose up sharply, and valleys sank deep, shaped not by wind or water, but by the pain of a mother who could not protect her own. Gaia cried out, and her voice was the first sound of suffering ever heard in all creation. It echoed through the silence, drifting up through the layers of rock, past the sleeping titans, rising until it brushed against the very stars. It was not a scream, sharp and shrill. It was deep, resonant, and endless, a sound that spoke of infinite patience worn thin, of love turned to resolve, of a gentle mother who had finally been pushed too far. Down in the darkness, the children heard their mother's cry. They felt the earth tremble around them, and they understood at last that their father was not kind. That his love was selfish, his protection a prison. The older titans bowed their heads and said nothing, for they feared the power of the sky. But Cronus, the youngest, the most thoughtful, the one whose eyes had always held a glint of quiet fire, stepped forward. He stood tall in the dim light far beneath the world, his shoulders straight, his face calm, and he placed his hand upon the warm, living stone of his mother's heart. "Mother," he said, and his voice was steady, "I hear you. I feel your pain. And I will set you free." Gaia looked upon him then, and she saw something she had not seen before, a strength that did not roar, but endured, a courage that did not seek glory, but justice. She drew close to him, deep within the hollow places of the world, and gave him a gift she had fashioned from her own being, from the hardest, strongest flint that lay at the very core of her. She had shaped a great, sharp sickle. Its blade curved like the crescent moon that would one day hang in the heavens, its edge keen as the bite of winter, its handle smooth and warm from her touch. She placed it in Cronus's hands, and his fingers closed around it, fitting as if it had been made exactly for him. "Be wise, my son," she whispered, her voice trembling like leaves. "Be strong. And remember, power is not given. It is taken by those bold enough to reach for it. But let it not make you hard. Let it not turn your heart to stone, as his has turned to sky." Cronus nodded, and he swore a solemn oath, binding it to the very essence of the world. He would free his brothers and sisters. He would end the cruelty of his father's rule. And he would bring light to the hidden places of the earth. Night after night, as Uranus hung low and watchful above the sleeping land, Cronus waited. He did not act in haste. He watched, and he listened, and he learned the patterns of his father's rest. He knew when the sky grew soft and drowsy, when the stars dimmed and the darkness deepened, when Uranus leaned down to brush the earth with his gentle but suffocating embrace. And when that moment came, when the great sky god descended, wrapping his vastness around the world, thinking all was quiet, all was safe, Cronus stepped out from the shadows. He moved with the silence of falling snow. He did not tremble. He did not hesitate. He raised the sickle his mother had given him, and with one swift, terrible stroke, he struck. There was a sound like mountains splitting apart. A great cry rose up, louder than any before it, shaking the stars from their places, rippling out across the endless void. Uranus recoiled, wounded and furious, his rage filling the heavens like a storm without end. But it was done. The hold was broken. The sky drew back, rising higher than it had ever been, pulled away from the earth at last, so that there was space between them, space for air, space for light, space for clouds to drift and birds to fly and life to breathe freely. From the drops that fell where the sky met the earth, strange and beautiful things began to grow. Where the divine blood touched the soil, the ash nymphs sprang into being, soft and graceful, daughters of the earth and sky. Where it fell into the sea, the foam swirled and shimmered, and out of the white, dancing waves would one day rise something lovely beyond imagining. And so the world began to fill, shaped by that single, fateful act. Uranus spoke his curse as he withdrew, his voice echoing down from the high, distant heavens, cold and terrible. "You have cast me down," he cried, "but you shall not hold this power forever. One day your own child shall rise against you, even as you have risen against me. And you too shall fall." Cronus heard the words. They settled deep into his heart, cold and heavy as lead, a shadow that would never truly leave him. But he did not flinch. He turned away from his father's voice, and he reached down into the darkness, and he opened the great gates that had held his family captive for so long. One by one, they came forth. Blinking, shielding their eyes, stepping out from the dark into the soft, starlight glow of the early world. The Titans walked upon the surface of the earth at last, breathing the free air, feeling the wind upon their faces, gazing up at the vast, open sky that stretched high above them now, no longer pressing down, but distant and grand. The Cyclopes came, and the 100-handed ones, and for a moment there was joy, and wonder, and deep relief. Gaia smiled, and the earth bloomed beneath her gaze, green shoots pushing through the soil, bright flowers opening to the stars, rivers carving their way toward the sea. All seemed well. The wrong had been righted. The age of the Titans had begun. But the curse hung in the air, unspoken but ever present. And Cronus, standing tall beneath the wide, unblinking heavens, felt it weighing upon him. He had freed his family. He had become the new ruler of the world. But he knew now what his father had known, that power brings fear along with it. That every child is one day a rival. That the throne above the earth is a beautiful, lonely, and dangerous place. So he turned to his brothers and sisters, and he spoke with authority, calm and sure. They would divide the world between them. They would build order from chaos. They would bring beauty and justice and strength to all the lands beneath the sky. And for a time, they did. The ages turned. The world grew rich and fair. Mountains settled into their places. Oceans found their shores. The stars traced steady paths across the firmament. And yet, in the quiet hours, when the world was asleep and the stars looked down, Cronus would gaze toward the horizon, and his heart would tighten. He remembered the words his father had spoken, high above the world, as he withdrew into the distant dark. And he swore to himself that he would never let it happen. He would be strong. He would be watchful. He would do whatever was needed to keep his crown and his rule safe forever. Breathe slowly now, and let the scene settle around you. Picture the world as it was then, wide, fresh, and new, stretching out in every direction, green and gold and blue, the sky high and clear above, the air sweet and clean. Somewhere in that vast, young land, the great Titan kings and queens walk among the growing things, their voices low and resonant, their steps gentle upon the earth. Cronus stands upon the highest peak, looking out over his domain, the sickle still at his side, his face calm but his eyes thoughtful, carrying the weight of a prophecy that will one day shape all history. All is peaceful now. The earth is at rest. The sky is distant and still. But deep within the heart of the king, a shadow has taken root. And shadows, once planted, grow slowly, silently, until they stretch across the whole of the world. Sleep well, now, wrapped in the quiet beauty of those early days, before the shadow grew long. The story continues, slowly, softly, waiting for you when you are ready. 3. The Prophecy and the Swallowed Stones. The world grew bright and beautiful under the rule of Cronus. For age upon age, the seasons began their gentle turning, soft green spring, warm golden summer, fruitful autumn, and quiet winter in her coat of silver frost. Rivers ran clear and swift from the high mountains down to the wide, blue seas. Trees grew tall and heavy with leaves, and flowers carpeted the valleys in every color imaginable. The stars moved in perfect order across the great, open sky, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of growing things and the soft murmur of gentle winds. Cronus ruled over all as the great king. He sat upon a throne of gleaming black stone set upon the highest mountain peak, where the air was thin and cool and the whole world lay spread out below him like a tapestry. Beside him sat Rhea, his sister, gentle and lovely, with eyes the color of deep forest pools and hair that fell like dark water over her shoulders. She was warm where he was stern, soft where he was hard, and she loved him deeply, never guessing at the fear that lived always in his heart, cold and unspoken. For Cronus never forgot the words his father Uranus had spoken from the high heavens, the curse that rang in his ears day and night: "One day your own child shall rise against you, even as you have risen against me. And you too shall fall." The fear grew with every passing year. It settled deep in his bones, a cold, heavy weight that no power could shake off. He had taken his father's throne by force. He knew better than anyone how easily a son could surpass his father, how strength could spring from the very ones you loved most. So he made a terrible, quiet resolve. He would not wait. He would not take the risk. No child of his would ever cast him down. In time, Rhea bore their first child, a daughter, bright and fair, with eyes like the starlight and a voice that sounded like sacred song. Her name was Hestia. When Cronus came to see his newborn child, his heart swelled for a moment with love, and then the fear rushed in, cold and sharp, drowning out all warmth. Before Rhea could speak or protest, he reached out, and in one swift, dreadful motion, he swallowed the child whole. Rhea cried out in horror and grief, reaching for her daughter, but it was already done. Cronus stood before her, pale and trembling, his face hard as stone. "It must be this way," he said, his voice rough and low. "Better this than what my father foretold. Better they are safe within me than turned against me in the years to come. Do not weep, my love. They suffer no harm. They sleep, warm and unknowing, deep within my breast. And no one shall ever take my throne." Rhea stared at him, her heart breaking within her, but she saw that his mind was made up, that fear had made him cruel. She had no power to stand against him, not yet. So she held her peace, and waited, and hoped that perhaps with time he would soften. But he did not. One by one, the children came, and one by one, Cronus swallowed them. Next was Demeter, gentle and kind, with hair the color of ripe wheat and hands that could make flowers bloom wherever they touched. Then Hera, proud and beautiful, with eyes like the deepest sky and a spirit bright and royal. Then Hades, strong and quiet, his gaze dark and deep as hidden places. Then Poseidon, whose laughter sounded like crashing waves and whose heart held the wildness of the endless sea. 5 children, all gone, all swallowed whole, all sleeping endlessly in the dark, warm prison of their father's body. And each time, Rhea wept silently, holding her sorrow deep inside, biding her time, waiting for the day when she too might call upon the wisdom and strength her own mother Gaia had once shown. Years passed, and Rhea carried a 6th child within her, the last, the one she would protect at any cost. As her time drew near, she slipped away quietly, traveling far across the young world, past forests and rivers, over mountains and valleys, until she came to a high, shadowed cave hidden deep within the side of Mount Aegaeon, where the sound of the wind was like gentle music and the stars looked down clear and bright. There she gave birth to her son, strong, beautiful, and crying loudly with the bright, fierce energy of new life. She named him Zeus. She held him close, kissing his soft forehead, rocking him gently, her heart swelling with love and with a terrible, fierce determination. She would not lose this one. She could not. She wrapped him in warm swaddling cloths, kissed him once more, and placed him into the care of gentle guardians, nymphs of the mountain and the forest, who would hide him away and raise him in secret, far from his father's eyes. Then she turned to her mother Gaia, who had come to stand beside her, and together they made their plan. Rhea took a great stone, heavy and smooth, and she wrapped it tightly in the same soft cloth she had wrapped around her son. She held it close to her breast, carrying it gently, as if it were a precious, living thing, and she returned to Cronus. She stood before him, her face calm, her voice steady, hiding all her joy and all her hope deep within her heart. "Here is our child," she said, holding out the bundle. "Take him, then, if you must. But know this, one day, you may regret the choice you have made." Cronus did not look closely. He did not unwrap the cloths. He did not feel the warm, beating heart or see the bright, sleeping eyes. The fear blinded him, haste drove him, and he reached out and swallowed the bundle in a single great gulp, just as he had swallowed all the others. The heavy stone sank deep within him, cold and hard and real, settling in his belly, a weight he would carry from that day forward, a constant, gnawing reminder of the choice he had made. He smiled then, believing himself safe at last. All his children were secure. The prophecy could never come true. No sun would ever rise to cast him down. He turned back to his throne, content and confident, never guessing that the child he feared most was even now breathing the free air of the world, growing strong and bright in the hidden mountain cave, watched over by the stars and the gentle earth. Far away, high upon the mountainside, Zeus grew quickly. He drank the sweet milk of the goat Amalthea, who tended him with great kindness, and he grew tall and strong day by day. His laughter echoed through the cave, bright and clear, startling the birds from the trees and ringing out across the valleys. He learned wisdom from the old ones who guarded him, and strength from the air he breathed, and courage from the freedom he had known since his very first breath. He did not yet know who he was, or what fate awaited him, but somewhere deep within his soul, he felt a purpose stirring, soft and steady as the turning of the stars. And deep within the dark, warm belly of Cronus, the 5 older children slept on. They did not hunger, they did not age, they did not fade. They waited, patient, silent, unknowing, for the day when they would step out into the light, for the brother who would one day come to set them free. The stone sat heavy beside them, cold and still, a silent promise kept, a trick played upon the king who had let fear rule his heart. So imagine now, as you drift slowly into rest, the world holding its breath. The great king sits upon his throne, believing himself safe, believing he has outwitted fate, while all the time the truth is hidden away in the high, quiet mountains. A child grows strong in secret. A stone rests heavy and cold in the dark. And the great, woven tapestry of destiny begins to shift and change, thread by thread, slowly, surely, drawing toward the day when the old order will fall and a new age will dawn. Breathe in the quiet mountain air. Feel the soft, warm light of the hidden cave. Hear the gentle laughter of the child who will one day rule all the heavens. All is well, for now. All is safe. The story unfolds in its own good time, and you may rest, wrapped in the silence before the storm. For the boy who grew in secret. High upon the slopes of Mount Aegaeon, where the air was always cool and sweet and the stars seemed to hang closer, brighter than anywhere else in all the world, the child Zeus grew. He did not grow as mortal children grow, slowly, year by year. He grew with the steady, quiet strength of a mountain rising, of a river carving its way through stone, of light spreading across the sky at dawn. Each day he seemed a little taller, his shoulders a little broader, his step a little surer. His voice, which had begun as a soft cry, deepened into something rich and resonant, like the murmur of wind through ancient pines, or the low, steady roll of distant thunder that rumbles deep within the earth but does not yet break upon the air. His home was a great, hollow cave, draped with soft, green moss and hung with ferns that brushed gently against the rock walls. Sunlight filtered down through cracks in the stone in thin, golden shafts, slanting across the cool, shadowed floor and filling the air with dancing dust motes that glowed like tiny stars. Outside, the seasons turned in their endless, gentle round. Spring brought wild flowers that carpeted the ground in purple and gold. Summer warmed the stone and filled the air with the scent of thyme and honey. Autumn painted the forest trees in fire and amber. Winter wrapped the high peaks in silver snow, soft and quiet, while the cave remained warm and sheltered, as if the earth herself held her hand over it to keep the boy safe. He was watched over by many gentle guardians. First among them was Amalthea, the great and kindly goat nymph who nourished him. Her coat was soft as velvet, the color of warm earth, and her eyes were large and dark and full of kindness. Each day she gave him sweet, rich milk, pure and sustaining, and from this milk his strength grew, strength that ran deep in his bones, that lived in his blood, that seemed to hum in time with the beating heart of the world itself. She tended him with endless care, singing him soft, ancient songs in a voice like flowing water, teaching him to know the rhythms of the earth, the turning of the stars, the quiet wisdom of wild things. Around him too were the nymphs of the mountain, bright, graceful beings who wove garlands of flowers for his hair, who brought him clear, cold water from hidden springs, who told him stories of the world below, of wide plains and blue seas, of great forests and far-off rivers. They never spoke of kings or of fear, of swallowed children or curses spoken in anger. They told him only of beauty, of wonder, of how the world had been shaped in the very beginning. And Zeus listened, and his heart filled with love for this wide, beautiful land he had never seen, and with a quiet, burning longing to see it free. As he grew older, he began to explore. He would step out from the shelter of the cave and walk among the high pastures, where the grass was short and sweet and the wind swept freely down from the peaks. He would climb the great, grey boulders that stood like silent sentinels upon the mountainside, his hands finding purchase where others could not go, his feet sure and steady even on the steepest slopes. He would stand upon the highest ridge and look out across the world, stretching away and away, vast and green and blue, fading into soft, hazy distance, and he would feel something deep within him stirring, a pull he did not understand, as if the whole wide world were calling his name, softly, insistently. Sometimes he would stand very still and close his eyes, and he would listen. He could hear the wind whispering through the valleys below, carrying voices he did not recognize. He could hear the great, slow beating of the earth's heart, steady and strong beneath his feet. And sometimes, faint and far away, he would hear a sound that made his chest ache, a low, heavy rumble, cold and fearful, rolling down from the high, distant sky. He did not know then that it was the voice of his father, the great King Cronus, ruling in fear and darkness, never guessing that the one he feared most stood upon a mountain peak, breathing the free air, growing stronger with every passing day. Years folded into one another, soft and unhurried, like clouds drifting across the sky. Zeus grew to be a youth of surpassing beauty and strength. His hair fell in dark, curling waves about his shoulders, gleaming like polished obsidian in the light. His eyes were bright and keen, the color of the deepest, clearest sky, and in their depths there burned a steady, golden fire. He moved with grace and power, every step sure, every gesture calm and deliberate. He was not yet a god in all his fullness, but he was becoming something greater, something stronger, a force rising, a light gathering, a storm waiting to break. One evening, as he sat upon a high rock watching the sun sink below the horizon, painting the heavens in rose and amber and deep violet, a woman came to him. She walked softly, her feet seeming barely to touch the grass, and she was wrapped in a cloak of shifting green and brown, the very colors of the earth herself. Her face was ancient and yet eternally young, her eyes warm and deep, and when she spoke, her voice was the voice of the soil, of stone, of rivers running deep and still. It was Gaia, his grandmother, the great mother of all things. She sat beside him and placed her hand upon his shoulder, and at her touch, the truth unfolded within his mind, clear and bright as the stars above. She told him everything. She told him of the beginning, of earth and sky, of the children hidden away in darkness. She told him of Cronus, his fear and his cruelty, of the 5 brothers and sisters sleeping deep within his breast, of the stone that rested cold and heavy in their place. She told him of the prophecy spoken at the very dawn of time, that a son should rise and cast down his father, that justice should replace fear, that the old order should give way to the new. And as she spoke, the pieces fell into place within his heart. The longing he had felt, the strength that grew within him day by day, the voice that called him from the wide world below, it was all for this. He was that son. He was the one foretold. The burden was his to carry, the choice his to make. Zeus sat in silence for a long time, watching the last light fade from the sky, listening to the wind sigh gently through the grass. He did not speak of glory or of power. He did not boast or swagger or make grand, angry threats. He thought instead of his mother Rhea, sorrowing in secret. He thought of his brothers and sisters, sleeping endlessly in the dark. He thought of the world below, beautiful and young, held beneath a shadow of fear. And he turned to Gaia, his face calm and his heart resolved. "I will go," he said. "I will free them. I will bring the shadow to an end. But I will not rule in fear. I will not become what he has become." Gaia smiled, and her smile was like sunlight breaking through cloud. She reached into the folds of her cloak and brought forth a small, golden cup, carved with ancient patterns that seemed to shift and glow in the fading light. Within it lay a draught, pale and shimmering, clear as spring water, yet holding within it a strange, soft radiance. "This is the potion of release," she whispered. "Bitter to the taste, gentle in its work. When the moment comes, it will loosen what has been held fast. It will bring forth what has been hidden. But be wise, my child. Be patient. Gather your strength and your allies. This will not be done easily. The old power does not yield without a fight." Zeus took the cup carefully in both hands, holding it as if it were the most precious thing in all creation. He looked out once more across the darkening world, toward the distant peaks where his father sat upon his throne, believing himself safe, believing he had conquered fate. And Zeus made his vow, and not in anger, not in pride, but in quiet, solemn purpose. He would go down. He would face the king. He would set his family free. And he would build a world where fear should never again be king. Now let your mind drift back to that quiet mountain evening. The air grows cool and soft around you. The stars begin to light, one by one, high above. Somewhere in the stillness, a young hero sits watching the horizon, holding a golden cup, carrying a great hope in his heart. All is calm. All is waiting. The die is cast. The path is chosen. And the great, quiet work of setting the world to rights has only just begun. Sleep deeply now, wrapped in the mountain's peace. The road stretches long and winding before him, but he walks it with sure feet and a steady heart. The story continues, slowly, gently, waiting for you when next you listen. 5. The Cup and the Great Release. The descent from the high mountains was made in quiet, slow, and careful, as if the very earth held its breath. Zeus walked beneath the spreading branches of ancient trees, where sunlight filtered through leaves in shifting patterns of gold and green, and the air was cool and fragrant with pine and damp moss. He carried the golden cup carefully, wrapped deep within his cloak, so that not even a glint of its light might betray him. He moved with the silence of a shadow, stepping where the grass was thickest, where the stones made no sound, guided by the wisdom his grandmother Gaia had given him, and by a quiet, sure instinct that pulled him onward, toward the place where his mother waited. He found her at last in a quiet valley far from the halls of the king, a place where white poplars stood tall and slender beside a clear, slow river. Rhea stood beneath their shade, her hair silvered now with the passing years, her face calm but her eyes heavy with long sorrow. When she saw the young man standing before her, tall and bright, with eyes like the sky she had not seen in so long, she caught her breath, and her hands flew to her mouth. She knew him at once, not by any mark or sign, but by the warmth that radiated from him, by the steady, gentle strength in his bearing, by the way he looked at her with her own eyes, her own blood, her own heart. They spoke little at first, for words were not needed. He stepped forward and took her hands in his, and she felt the warmth of him, the life in him, and the tears that she had held back for so many years rose up and flowed freely, soft and healing. He told her then what he had come to do, and he showed her the golden cup, and the draught that lay within it, shimmering faintly in the dappled light. "It will not harm him," Zeus said softly. "It will only undo what he has done. It will bring forth what he has hidden away. The rest will follow." Rhea looked long at the cup, and then up at her son, strong and noble, standing straight and sure, and she nodded slowly. She knew that there could be no other way. That what was done in fear must be undone with courage. That the dark, heavy silence of so many years must be broken at last. So together they made their plan. Rhea returned to the halls of Cronus, her heart steadied, her face composed. She came to him one quiet evening, when the light was fading from the sky and the great king sat upon his throne, weary and heavy-browed, surrounded by shadows that seemed to cling closer with every passing year. Fear had aged him more than time itself. His shoulders were bowed, his hair streaked with grey, his eyes watchful and restless, always searching the darkness, always expecting the blow he knew must one day fall. "I have brought you a draught," Rhea said gently, stepping forward with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "A drink of peace, to calm your heart and ease your cares. It is sweet to the taste, and warm, and it will bring you rest." Cronus looked at the cup she held out, golden and gleaming in the firelight, and for a moment suspicion stirred within him. He had trusted no one, not even her, in all these long years. But she stood before him, quiet and familiar, her hand steady, her gaze clear, and his weariness overcame his caution. He longed so deeply for peace, for an end to the cold dread that woke him in the night, that he reached out and took the cup without further question. He did not know that the hand that had prepared it belonged to the son he had feared above all others. He did not know that the liquid glowing within was the very thing that would bring his rule to an end. He lifted the cup to his lips and drank. It was cool and clear, slipping down easily, and for a moment nothing happened. Then, slowly, a strange warmth spread through him, not the heat of fire, but a soft, gentle loosening, as if knots tied tight for years were coming undone one by one. He felt a gentle stirring deep within his chest, a rising lightness, and then a strange, soft urgency. He frowned, his hand going to his throat, and his face paled. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "What have you given me?" Before Rhea could answer, the first thing rose up, the great, heavy stone wrapped in cloth, cold and hard and real. It came forth slowly, and Cronus gasped, coughing and retching, and the stone fell to the floor with a heavy, echoing thud that shook the very foundations of the hall. And then, one by one, the others came. They did not come as children, small and helpless, as they had been when they were swallowed. The strange, timeless sleep had held them suspended, untouched by the passing years, and so they stepped forth in the fullness of their divine growth, tall, bright, and beautiful, their forms glowing with an inner light, their faces calm and unharmed. First came Hestia, eldest and most gentle, her gaze steady and kind, her presence filling the room with quiet grace. Then Demeter, warm and earthlike, her hands resting lightly at her sides, strength and softness woven together. Then Hera, proud and radiant, her eyes bright and unbowed, carrying within her the dignity of queens. Then Hades, dark and solemn, his gaze deep and still, holding within it the quiet of places far from the sun. And last came Poseidon, bright and restless, his hair wild as storm-driven foam, his bearing speaking of vast, untamed waters. They stood together in a line, 5 great beings, shining in the dim light of the hall, tall and strong and unharmed, gazing calmly upon the Father who had hidden them away for so long. They did not cry out. They did not curse him. They simply stood, whole and free, returned to the light of day, a living reproach to all his fear and all his cruelty. Cronus stared at them, pale and trembling, his face ashen. He looked at the stone lying upon the floor, cold and grey, and then at Rhea, and then his eyes fell upon the doorway, where Zeus now stood, calm and straight, the empty golden cup still in his hand, his gaze steady and clear. And in that moment, Cronus understood everything. He had been tricked. The prophecy had come true. The son he had never seen, the one he had never swallowed, stood before him now, strong and young, and the power he had clutched so tightly all his life was slipping from his grasp like water through his fingers. "You," Cronus whispered, his voice breaking. "You are the one." "I am," Zeus replied, and there was no anger in his voice, only a quiet, sad certainty. "And this is the end of the age of fear. Let it be the end of strife also. Step down, Father. Give way to the new day. There need be no more bloodshed. But fear does not easily let go." Cronus drew himself up, his face darkening with rage and shame, and he let out a great cry that rolled out across the land and echoed up to the high heavens. He would not yield. He would not surrender what he had taken. He called out to his kin, to the Titans who still ruled the far corners of the world, and he declared that this would not end in peace, but in war. A great war. A war that would shake the very foundations of the world, that would set brother against brother, child against parent, heaven against earth. So the lines were drawn. The 5 newly freed gods and goddesses stood beside their brother Zeus, and Rhea stood with them, and Gaia watched from the quiet places of the earth. On the other side stood Cronus and those Titans who chose to stand with him, proud and ancient, clinging to the old order, determined to hold power at any cost. The stone remained there upon the floor, cold and silent, a symbol of the trick that had set everything in motion, a reminder that even the sharpest fear may be deceived, that even the strongest grasp may close around nothing but rock. In time, that stone would be carried far away, to a place of great honor, a sacred marker standing at the very center of the known world, seen by generations yet to come, a silent witness to the day when the hidden were brought forth and the old power began to fall. But for now, let the scene settle gently in your mind. The hall is quiet once more. The freed ones stand together, breathing the free air, seeing the stars for the first time, their eyes bright with wonder and with purpose. The old king sits bowed upon his throne, his face shadowed, his heart bitter with defeat. And at the center stands Zeus, young and calm, holding the empty cup, knowing that he has done what is just, but knowing too that the hardest part of all is yet to come. Rest now, in the quiet between the old world and the new. The air is still, the stars are watching, and the great, terrible war that will shape all history is slowly, inevitably, drawing near. 6. The Titanomachy, the War of the Ages. The world held its breath. Where once there had been peace under the rule of Cronus, now there was division. The great call went out across mountains, valleys, and the far reaches of the wide, circling sea. The Titans gathered to hear the words of their king, and they chose their sides. Some stood with Cronus, believing that the old order must remain, that ancient power should not give way to the young. Others turned away, seeing the shadow of fear that hung over his throne, and they stepped instead to stand beside Zeus and his brothers and sisters, choosing hope over habit, and justice over the right of the strongest. Thus the world was split in two. On one side stood the older Titans, led by Cronus himself, great, solemn, and terrible in their ancient might, their forms vast as mountains, their voices deep as rolling thunder. On the other side stood Zeus and his siblings, and those who had chosen the new path. Yet they knew something the older ones did not, deep within the dark heart of the earth, other prisoners still lay bound, the Cyclopes and the hundred-handed ones, buried there since the earliest days, forgotten by all but Gaia. Zeus turned to his grandmother, and she spoke softly to him in the quiet hours before the war began. "Go down," she said. "Go to the dark places where the prisoners dwell. Win their trust, and they will be your greatest strength. They are mighty beyond measure, and they bear no love toward the ones who kept them chained." So Zeus and his brothers descended far below the surface of the world, down past layers of rock and shadow, down to the very roots of the earth, where the air was cool and still and the darkness was complete. There they found the Cyclopes, 3 great figures, each with one glowing eye, sitting in the dim light, hammering shapes from stone and fire, their hands broad and strong. They looked up as the newcomers approached, wary at first, expecting commands or harsh words. But Zeus bowed low before them, and spoke gently, and told them he had come to break their chains. He did not ask for anything in return. He simply struck the bonds that held them fast, and stepped back, letting them stand free for the first time in their lives. The Cyclopes stared at him, their single eyes glowing with surprise and gratitude. And in return, they gave him gifts such as no one else in all the world would ever possess. To Zeus they gave the thunderbolt, forged with fire and skill, bright and terrible, a weapon that would blaze across the sky and shake the world. To Poseidon they gave the great trident, 3-pronged and strong, with power to stir the seas and calm the waves at a single touch. And to Hades they gave a helmet, dark and gleaming, which made the wearer invisible to all eyes, so that he might pass unseen through shadow and through danger, unseen even by the gods themselves. Then they went deeper still, and found the hundred-handed ones, 3 vast brothers, each with 50 heads and 100 great arms, towering like moving cliffs. They were feared even by their own kin, for their size and their strength were beyond imagining. But Zeus spoke to them too with kindness and respect, and broke their chains, and bade them stand beside him as free allies, not as prisoners or slaves. And so the great ones bowed their 50 heads, and swore an oath to fight beside him until the end. Now the army of the new day was ready. They climbed up from the dark places, bringing their allies into the light, and the great war began. It was a conflict unlike any that had ever been seen before, or ever would be again. The earth shook to its very foundations. The sea rose up and crashed in towering waves against the shore. The sky itself trembled, and the stars seemed to shift in their places, as if even the heavens were uncertain which way to lean. Cronus and his Titan allies stood upon the highest peaks, casting great rocks and storms of fire down upon their foes. Mountains were torn from their roots and hurled across the land, crashing together with a sound like the ending of the world. Great clouds of dust and smoke rose up, darkening the sky, so that day became twilight, and twilight became almost night. Rivers changed their course, diverted by the falling stones. Valleys were carved deep where mountains had once stood, and new peaks rose up where the earth had buckled beneath the weight of blows. But Zeus and his allies stood firm. Whenever Cronus cast his might against them, the Cyclopes forged thunderbolts with endless speed, and Zeus seized them in his hands and hurled them back, blazing, golden, and terrible. Lightning flashed across the sky, searing the darkness, and thunder rolled from horizon to horizon, answering the thunder of the rocks. And whenever the Titans pressed forward, the hundred-handed one stepped forward to meet them, catching the great boulders in their 100 hands as if they were pebbles, flinging them back with even greater force, so that the very air seemed filled with a storm of stone. For 10 long years the war raged. Season followed season, but there was no spring or summer, only the roar of battle and the smoke of conflict. The land was scarred and broken, shaped not by time or weather, but by the hands of gods. Yet slowly, steadily, the tide began to turn. The older Titans were strong, but they were burdened by pride and fear. They fought to keep what they had taken. Zeus and his allies fought to set the world free. And there is a strength in freedom that no tyranny, however ancient, can ever truly match. At last came the final, great battle. Zeus gathered all his strength. He called down the full power of the sky. Lightning blazed in every direction at once. Thunder crashed so loudly that the very mountains split open. And then, at the height of the storm, the 100-handed ones rushed forward, 100 arms swinging in perfect rhythm, casting a storm of stones that no shield could hold back, no courage could withstand. The Titans faltered. Their lines broke. And Zeus stepped forward, blazing with golden light, his thunderbolt held high in his hand, and faced Cronus at last. Father and son stood together upon the highest peak, the world spread out far below them, shrouded in mist and smoke. Cronus looked upon his son, young, bright, and unbowed, and he saw at last that the prophecy had been fulfilled, that all his fear and all his cruelty had been for nothing. That trying to hold back the turning of the ages was like trying to hold back the tide. He lowered his arms. He did not strike the final blow. "It is done," Cronus said, his voice quiet above the fading roar of battle. "You have won. The old age is ended. Let the new age be better than mine was." And so the war was finished. The Titan allies who had fought against them were gathered together and taken far away to a place of deep darkness, beyond the circling streams of the great ocean, where they would remain in peace, separated from the world they had once claimed to rule, a memory kept safe in shadow. Atlas, the greatest and most steadfast of the opposing Titans, was given a burden that matched his strength. He was sent to the very ends of the earth, and commanded to stand there forever, holding the great vault of the sky upon his shoulders, so that it might never again press down upon the earth as it had done in the days of Uranus. A noble punishment for a noble foe, a burden borne with dignity through all the ages. Peace returned slowly to the scarred and weary world. The dust settled. The smoke drifted away. The sun broke through the clouds once more, shining down upon the broken lands, and the earth began to heal. The rivers found their courses again. Green things pushed up through the ash and stone. And high above, beneath the wide, clear sky, Zeus and his brothers and sisters stood together, united, free, and victorious. The age of the Titans had passed. The age of the Olympians had begun. Let your mind drift now away from the noise and the storm, away from the clash of stone and fire, to that quiet moment when the sky cleared and the light returned. Imagine the world breathing once more, deep and slow, as the shadows drew back and the stars looked down upon a new beginning. All the pain and struggle is behind you now. Rest in the quiet after the storm, and let your thoughts settle like dust upon the grass, soft and still. The story turns now toward peace, and order, and the building of a world that will stand for all time. 7. The Three Portions and the Heavenly Throne. The war had ended. The smoke had drifted away on the wind, and the scarred earth was already beginning to heal. Green shoots pushed up through ash and broken stone. Rivers, freed from their confusion, settled back into their gentle courses, and the great vault of heaven stretched clear and blue above the world once more. The old power had yielded. The Titans had withdrawn to their distant, shadowed places. And now, at last, there was time to breathe, to look around, and to build something lasting and fair upon the ruins of the age that had passed. Zeus gathered his brothers together upon the highest mountain, the great, snow-capped peak that would one day bear the name Olympus. There the air was always pure and sweet, thin and sparkling, touched by neither storm nor darkness, a place where the light was golden and soft, as if the very heavens leaned down close to greet the earth. Poseidon stood beside him, his eyes the color of storm-racked seas, his hair tossing like wild waves. And Hades stood there too, quiet and solemn, his gaze deep and still, carrying within it the silence of places far removed from the sun. They had fought side by side. They had faced danger and darkness together. And now the world lay before them, vast and waiting, and it was right that they should divide it fairly between them. There was no strife among them, no grasping greed, no bitter fear. They cast lots, simple, sacred tokens shaken in a hollow cup, and to each fell his own portion, his own domain, his own sphere of power, to tend and to guard through all the ages to come. To Poseidon fell the wide, circling sea. All the waters of the world were his, the great salt ocean that stretched beyond the furthest shore, the bays and inlets where waves broke softly upon the sand, the rivers that wound down from the mountains to meet the tide, and the hidden springs that bubbled cool and sweet from deep within the earth. He took his trident, the gift of the Cyclopes, and struck the waves, and they rose up to greet him, cresting white and proud. He became the shaker of the earth, the ruler of tides and storms, the guardian of all who sailed upon the deep. He built his golden palaces beneath the sparkling waves, where coral grew in endless gardens and sea nymphs sang in low, haunting voices, and there he dwelt, mighty, restless, and free, lord of all the waters that lap against the shores of the world. To Hades fell the dark, quiet lands beneath the earth, the unseen realm that stretches far below the soil, where the sun never shines and the air is cool and still. It was not a place of punishment, not then, nor a place of suffering. It was simply the other half of the world, the hidden places, the deep shadows, the quiet resting place of all things that pass away. Hades took his helmet of invisibility, and he descended alone, walking with steady steps into the vast, silent domain that had been given to him. He ruled there with calm and impartial hand, neither cruel nor greedy, keeping to his own realm, asking nothing of the world above, disturbing no one, seeing all things yet seen by none. He became the unseen king, the quiet guardian of the departed, holding the keys to the gates whence none return. And though his name was spoken in whispers and his realm feared by those who loved the light, he ruled his portion with justice, untroubled by the noise and glory of the heavens above. And to Zeus fell the broad sky and the high, shining heavens, the clouds, the lightning, the soft rain, the stars, and the moon and the golden sun. He became the ruler of the air, the lord of the heights, the one who sits upon the highest throne and sees all things spread out beneath him. He took his place upon the summit of the world, and the light wrapped around him like a cloak. He became the guardian of justice, the keeper of oaths, the father of gods and of men, holding the thunderbolt in his hand but using it wisely, slow to anger, swift to protect, gentle to those who honor the good. He did not rule alone, for beside him sat Hera, his queen, proud, beautiful, and royal, whose eyes were as bright as the starry sky, and who watched over marriage and home and all the bonds that hold families together. So the three brothers took their portions, and each went his own way, to tend what had been entrusted to him. And beneath them, gathered around the great peak of Olympus, dwelt the others, Hestia, whose gentle spirit presided over the sacred fire at the heart of every home, Demeter, who walked the green earth and taught the secrets of seed and harvest, making the land bring forth fruit and grain, and all the rest of the immortals, each with their own gifts, their own spheres, their own honors. They built for themselves shining palaces of marble, gold, and bronze, set into the sides of the holy mountain, where the gates were of cloud and the floors were inlaid with starlight. There they feasted upon nectar and ambrosia, the food of the gods, which gave them eternal youth and endless life. There they sang and made music, and sat in council, deciding the fate of the world below, watching with care and kindness over the growing things that moved upon the face of the earth. Zeus established order, where before there had been only power and fear. He laid down laws, sacred and unchanging, that applied to god and mortal alike. He saw that the seasons turned in their proper order, one after another, each with its own work, its own beauty, its own time. He saw that the stars kept their paths, that the moon waxed and waned, that day followed night in endless, gentle round. He did not seek to crush the world beneath him, as Uranus had done. He did not hide his children away in the dark, as Cronus had done. He gave each god and goddess their due place, their voice in council, their freedom to be what they were. And so the world grew bright and fair, safe and ordered, filled with light and with life. Yet even in the high, shining halls of Olympus, there was one who stood apart. Hades did not come often to the councils above. He did not feast or laugh or walk among the clouds. He remained in his quiet realm below, tending his own domain, keeping the balance between the world of light and the world of shadow. And so it has ever been, 3 great portions, 3 great brothers, 3 pillars holding up the whole of existence, the restless sea, the quiet dark, and the wide, bright sky. 3 realms, separate yet connected, each necessary to the other, each completing the whole. Now let your thoughts rise gently up, as if you yourself are ascending the slopes of that great, holy mountain. Feel the air growing cooler and sweeter around you. See the marble columns gleaming white in the sunlight, and the golden gate standing open, framed by soft, drifting clouds. Hear the gentle music that echoes through the halls, calm and timeless. Look out from that high place, and see the world spread out far below, the blue curve of the ocean, the green sweep of forest and plain, the silver thread of rivers winding toward the sea. All is ordered now. All is in its proper place. Peace has come at last to the heavens, and the great age of Olympus has truly begun. Breathe in that pure, high air. Let your gaze rest upon the wide, clear sky. Feel the calm and certainty that dwell there, where the world is fair and the laws are just, and the greatest of all the gods sits upon his throne, watching over all things with a steady, kindly eye. Rest now in that golden peace. The mountains are safe. The waters are calm. And the story continues, unfolding slowly through the ages, waiting for you when you are ready to listen again. 8. Demeter and the gift of the harvest. Of all the immortals who walked upon the green earth, none were more gentle, or more deeply loved the growing world, than Demeter. She was soft of step and warm of heart, her hair the color of ripe wheat beneath the summer sun, her hands broad and kind, shaped by tending the soil and nurturing all that springs from it. While Zeus ruled the high heavens and Poseidon the salt seas, Demeter walked among the fields and valleys, the guardian of seed and soil, of root and bud, of every blade of grass and every flower that opens to the light. She taught the early mortals who had come to dwell upon the earth how to break the ground with plough and how to cast the grain into the waiting furrow. She showed them the proper times to sow and to reap, so that they might have bread to eat and storehouses filled against the cold. Where she walked, the land grew rich and fruitful. Where she rested, wild flowers sprang up around her feet, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of clover and blooming fruit. Demeter had one child, a daughter named Persephone, bright, beautiful, and full of joy. She was the very spirit of springtime, her laughter like the tinkle of water over smooth stones, her presence bringing warmth and softness wherever she went. She grew up wandering freely through the sunlit meadows, gathering armfuls of lilies and roses, dancing with the nymphs beneath the blue sky, knowing nothing of sorrow, nothing of shadow, nothing of the quiet world that lay beneath her feet. Her mother watched over her with endless love, guarding her as one guards the most precious blossom in all the garden, never guessing that far below, in the quiet halls of the unseen realm, another had seen her beauty and dreamed of making her his own. It happened on a bright, soft day in early spring. The sky was a perfect, cloudless blue. The air was warm and scented with the perfume of 1,000 flowers. Persephone had wandered a little apart from her companions, bending low to admire a bloom of extraordinary beauty, its petals crimson and gold, its scent sweet and heady. She reached out to pluck it, and as her fingers closed around the stem, the earth trembled gently beneath her. A great chasm opened in the ground at her feet, and before she could call out, a dark, silent figure stepped forth from the depths. It was Hades, the unseen king, lord of the under-earth, his face grave and calm, his chariot drawn by coal-black horses whose hoofs made no sound upon the grass. Before Persephone could run or cry for help, he lifted her gently into his arms, turned his horses, and descended once more into the dark opening. The earth closed again behind them, smooth and silent, as if nothing had ever been there. The sun continued to shine. The birds continued to sing. But Persephone was gone. When her companions turned and found her missing, they called out in alarm, but there was no answer. No trace, no footprints, no sign of where she had gone. Demeter heard the cries, and her heart, which had always been light, turned cold with dread. She ran to the meadow, her feet flying over the grass, and saw only the broken flower lying upon the ground. And then she knew that something terrible had happened, that her child had been taken from her. For 9 long days and 9 long nights, Demeter wandered the world, searching everywhere. She carried 2 flaming torches lit from the heart of a volcano, so that she might see even in the darkest hours. She asked every living thing she met, birds, beasts, nymphs, rivers, mountains, if they had seen her daughter. But none had seen anything. Hades had moved so silently, and the earth had opened and closed so quickly, that no eye had beheld him carry her away. On the 10th day, the sun god Helios, who sees all things that happen beneath the sky, spoke to her gently from his golden chariot high above. "Demeter," he said, "goddess of the harvest, weep no more. I have seen what happened. It was Hades who took her. He saw her beauty and loved her, and he asked Zeus your brother for permission to make her his queen. And Zeus gave his consent. So Hades came up in silence, and carried her down to his realm, to rule beside him in the halls beneath the earth. When Demeter heard this, her heart broke within her, not with loud, raging anger, but with a deep, cold, endless sorrow. She turned away from the bright sky, from the fields and flowers she had tended so lovingly, and she withdrew from the company of the gods. She laid aside her robes of color and her garlands of wheat, and she dressed in dark clothing, and she sat by the side of a quiet spring, far from the cities and the temples, and she grieved. And because Demeter grieved, the earth itself began to grieve with her. The seed she had taught mortals to sow lay in the ground and would not sprout. The grass turned brown and dry. The flowers withered upon their stems. The trees dropped their leaves, and the fields that had been golden and waving became grey and empty. The rivers shrank, and the springs ran dry. Mortals began to go hungry, their storehouses empty, their crops dead in the ground. And still Demeter sat, silent and sorrowing, refusing to speak, refusing to smile, refusing to let the earth bring forth its fruit, until her daughter was returned to her. At last, seeing that the world was dying, Zeus sent messengers down to plead with her. One by one, the gods came, beautiful Iris, swift of foot, gentle Apollo, singing sweetly, and many others, bringing gifts and kind words, begging her to relent. But Demeter would not listen. She told them plainly, "Not one seed shall sprout, not one flower shall bloom, not one harvest shall ripen, until my daughter stands once more beside me beneath the sun." Zeus saw that she would not be moved, and so he sent Hermes, the swift, clever messenger who moves freely between heaven, earth, and the deep places below, down to the realm of Hades, bearing his command. Persephone must be allowed to return. The earth must be saved. Down went Hermes, slipping through the dark gates, past the silent watchman, until he stood in the great shadowed halls of the under-earth. There he found Persephone sitting beside Hades, her face pale and quiet, her eyes heavy with longing for the sunlit world she had known. Hades looked upon her, and though his heart was sad at the thought of losing her, he too was kind. He knew that he could not keep her against her will, and he agreed to let her go. But before she left, he gave her a single, beautiful pomegranate, deep red and glistening, and asked her to eat just a few seeds from it. Persephone, not knowing the ancient law, that whoever eats food in the realm of the dead must return to it, ate 6 sweet, ruby seeds. And then she stepped into the chariot, and Hermes brought her swiftly back up to the light. The meeting between mother and daughter was quiet and full of tears. Demeter held Persephone close, feeling her warmth, seeing her smile, and her heart swelled with joy. But then she asked the question she had been dreading, "Did you eat anything while you were down there?" And Persephone told her of the pomegranate, and the 6 seeds she had eaten. Demeter's heart sank, for she knew the law as well as anyone. And so it was agreed, with wisdom and compassion, that because she had eaten the fruit of the under-earth, Persephone must spend 6 months of every year below with Hades, as his queen, and 6 months above in the sunlight with her mother. And that is how the seasons began their turning. For 6 months, while Persephone dwells in the world below, Demeter grieves. The earth grows cold. The leaves fall. The fields lie bare and still, wrapped in snow and quiet. That is winter. But when the 6 months are ended, and Persephone returns, Demeter smiles once more. The seeds sprout. The grass turns green. The flowers burst open, and the trees grow heavy with leaf and fruit. The land rejoices, and the harvests are rich and full, that is spring and summer and autumn. So the world was shaped by a mother's love and a daughter's longing, and the turning of the year became a story told in blossoms and in snow, forever repeating, forever beautiful. Now let your mind drift softly over those ancient fields. Picture Demeter watching the horizon, waiting patiently for the return of her child. Feel the warmth of the sun upon your face as Persephone comes home, and see how the world blooms at her coming. And when the time comes for her to depart, imagine the earth wrapping itself in quiet stillness, resting and waiting, knowing with certainty that she will return. All things have their season. All things come round in their own good time. There is beauty in the blooming, and there is peace in the rest. Rest now, beneath the quiet turning of the year, and let the gentle rhythm of the seasons lull you into a deep, sweet sleep. 9. Apollo, the golden archer and the shining bow. High upon the sunlit slopes of the holy mountain, where the air hummed with warmth and light, there once stood 2 children born of the golden line, twins, born at the same hour, alike in beauty yet different as day is from the soft, starlit night. The elder was Artemis, swift and strong, wild and free, whose heart belonged to the mountains and the forests and the open sky. The younger was Apollo, bright and radiant, fair beyond all telling, his hair like spun gold falling to his shoulders, his eyes clear and brilliant as the heavens at noon. From their very first breath, they were loved beyond measure, for within them lay a brightness that seemed to flow straight from the heart of light itself. But their beginning had not been easy. Long before they were born, their mother, the gentle Titan Leto, had carried them within her with great care and tenderness. Yet Hera, Queen of Heaven, had looked upon her with jealousy, and had cast a terrible curse upon her, that no land upon the face of the whole earth should give her shelter or a place to bring forth her children. So Leto wandered for many long months, weary and heavy-burdened, traveling from place to place, seeking rest and finding none. Mountains shook and turned her away. Great cities closed their gates. Rich and fertile lands refused her footing, for all feared the anger of the queen. At last, far out in the wide, blue sea, there rose a floating island, rocky and barren, drifting beneath the stars, bound to no shore and owing loyalty to no land. It was called Delos, and it welcomed her, saying, "I will shelter you, gentle one. Though I am poor and stony, here you shall bring forth your children, and they shall be great, and your glory shall make me glorious also." So it was upon Delos, beneath a sky of deepest, clearest blue, that Apollo was born. The island trembled with joy at his coming. The grey rocks burst into sudden bloom. The waves grew calm and still. And as he drew his first breath, golden light seemed to flow from him, wrapping the whole island in warmth and radiance. He did not cry as mortal children cry. He smiled, and reached out his small hands, and the very air seemed to sing around him. It was said that on the very day of his birth, the golden sun poured down its brightest beams, and all the world seemed to pause and hold its breath, as if knowing that something wonderful had entered into it. He grew not as others grow year by year, but with a grace and speed that belonged only to the immortals. Within a few days, he stood tall and straight, fair and shining, and he spoke with a voice that rang clear and sweet, like a bell struck in the stillness. He went before Zeus, his father, and all the assembled gods upon Olympus, and he asked for 3 great gifts. First, the gift of prophecy, to know all things, past, present, and to come, and to speak the truth to all who should seek it. Second, the gift of song and the lyre, to make music so beautiful it might soothe even the heaviest heart. And third, a bow and arrows of silver, to defend the good and drive away evil from the world. Zeus smiled upon his bright son, and granted all 3 wishes. And so Apollo became the god of light and truth, of music and healing, of archery and the sun's own golden fire. Wherever he walked, darkness fled before him. His arrows flew straight and true, never missing their mark, carrying both protection and the just stroke of divine power. His lyre was strung with 7 strings of silver, and when he touched them, the rivers paused in their courses to listen, the winds fell silent, and the very stars leaned down to hear. He taught mortals the arts of healing, showing them how to use herbs and water and gentle touch to ease pain and bring comfort to the sick. And he built a great, sacred temple upon the slopes of Mount Parnassus, where the world itself seemed to breathe and speak, and there he gave counsel to all who came, uttering words that were always true, though often hard to understand. Yet for all his brightness, Apollo was not without sorrow, nor without lessons to learn. He learned that even those who shine brightest may have their hearts broken, that even the God of truth may not always be understood, and that time and fate hold sway over all things, even the golden ones. He loved deeply, many times, and not all his loves were happy ones. There was Daphne, the gentle nymph who loved the wildwoods more than any crown or palace, and who fled from his pursuit until the earth took pity and turned her into a laurel tree, her soft skin to bark, her hair to rustling leaves. Apollo stood beneath her branches, and though his heart ached, he honored her choice, and declared that the laurel should ever after be his sacred tree, its woven wreath the highest prize of honor and renown. There was Hyacinth, the beautiful youth whom Apollo loved most of all, and whose life was cut short by a cruel chance, so that from his blood sprang a flower of deep purple and gold, bearing his name forever. And so Apollo learned that even the gods cannot hold back the turning of the years, nor keep what is given back to the earth. He learned too that prophecy is a heavy gift. He saw things that would come to pass, sorrows, wars, great falls and great rises, and he could not always change them, though he longed to. He learned that truth does not always bring comfort, and that people do not always wish to hear it. Yet he spoke it still, gently and clearly, knowing that to guide is better than to flatter, and that to warn is an act of love. Imagine Apollo now, as the ancients pictured him, standing tall and graceful in the morning light, his golden hair flowing unbound, a silver bow slung across his shoulder, a quiver of gleaming arrows at his side, and a lyre resting in his hands. He walks with quiet dignity, his step light and sure, bringing light and warmth wherever he goes. He is the sun's own heart made visible, bright, noble, far-seeing, yet touched with a soft, human sadness that makes him dearer still. He does not shout or boast or rule with fear. He stands as a guardian, a guide, a healer, and a friend, ever young, ever fair, ever shining with that pure and gentle light that dispels the shadows. When the sun rises each morning, it is Apollo who climbs high into the heavens, bringing light to the world, driving away darkness and fear. When the sun sets, he leaves behind the quiet stars and the silver moon, his sister Artemis, to watch over the sleeping world through the night. And so the two hold the light between them, she the soft, silver light of night, and he the warm, golden light of day, guarding the world in turn, in endless, gentle harmony. So let your mind rest upon that golden light now. Feel the warmth of it upon your face, soft and steady. Let the thought of his lyre bring a quiet calm to your heart. Know that the light always returns, that darkness is never endless, and that truth and beauty abide even when sorrow comes. Apollo walks his course across the wide sky, faithful and true, and the world turns gently beneath his gaze, safe and watched over, wrapped in golden peace. Sleep well now, beneath the guardian sun. The light is watching. The music is playing, soft and endless. And all is well, in the care of the Golden One. 10. Artemis, the huntress of the wild moon. Where her brother Apollo was the radiance of the sun, warm and golden and open to all, Artemis was the pure, silver light of the moon, cool, clear, and untouched, moving through the quiet places of the world where the shadows are soft and the stars hang low. She was born upon the same sunlit isle, drawing her first breath beside her twin, and even as an infant she showed what she would one day be. While Apollo reached toward the light and the lyre, Artemis reached toward the wildwoods and the open sky, her eyes bright and keen, her limbs strong and active, her spirit free and unbound. When they stood together before their father Zeus, Apollo asked for light and song and wisdom. Artemis asked for things far different. She asked to remain forever unmarried, belonging to no one but herself and the wild world she loved. She asked for a bow and arrows of silver, crafted with her own skill. She asked for a band of nymphs to be her companions, all free and unwed like her. She asked for mountains and forests and rivers, for the open air and the quiet solitude of the wilderness. And she asked to rule over the wild creatures of the earth, to guard them and to guide them, to be their champion and their friend. Zeus looked upon his daughter, straight and proud, her gaze steady and unflinching, and he smiled, and granted every wish. And so Artemis became the lady of the wild, the huntress of the moon, the guardian of all things free and untamed. Her bow was curved like the crescent moon itself, polished and gleaming silver, strung with a cord of shining white. Her arrows were tipped with silver too, sharp and true, and she carried them in a quiver slung across her shoulders, which were clad in a short tunic of soft green, gathered up so that she might run freely. Her hair was dark and braided simply, held back from her face, and her feet were bare and swift, knowing every stone and every root, every mossy bank and every hidden path. She moved with the silence of a falling shadow, swifter than the deer she chased, quieter than the wind in the pine trees. No beast could hear her coming. No hunter could match her aim. Her arrows flew straight and sure, and she never missed her mark. Her days were spent wandering the high mountains and deep forests, accompanied by her band of 20 nymphs, bright, swift maidens, who loved the wild as she did, who ran beside her and sang together beneath the trees. They carried torches lit from the moon's own fire, and their laughter rang out clear and sweet, echoing through the valleys. Around them followed the gentle beasts of the wild, stags with great branching antlers, hinds soft-eyed and graceful, fawns that trotted beside them fearlessly, wolves that walked at a distance with quiet respect, and bears that lumbered peacefully through the glades. Artemis loved them all. She knew each one by name. She watched over their young, healed their wounds, guided them to water in the heat, and sheltered them in the storm. She was their queen, their mother, their protector. And woe to anyone who harmed them without cause, for Artemis was swift to anger when cruelty was done, and her arrows struck true and just. When the sun sank low and the golden light faded from the sky, Artemis would climb to the highest peak, and there she would place her silver bow upon her shoulder, and she would step into her chariot. It was drawn by 2 white stags, their horns gilded and gleaming, their feet light as snow upon the air. And then she would rise up into the heavens, driving her chariot across the wide, dark sky, carrying the moon before her. She would scatter her silver light across the sleeping world, upon the mountains and the valleys, upon the forests and the quiet sea, touching every leaf and every wave with soft, pale radiance. She watched over the sleeping land, seeing all things in her gentle light, guarding the quiet hours, watching over children and all who wander alone in the dark. She was gentle, yet she was terrible. She loved purity and simplicity. She loved honor and courage. But she had no patience with arrogance or cruelty, with those who boasted of their skill or who thought themselves greater than the gods. There were those who learned this lesson, too late, and felt the sting of her silver arrows. Yet she was never unjust. She punished pride, not innocence. She protected the weak, the wild, and the free. She stood for something ancient and unchanging, the wildness in the world, the beauty of untamed things, the quiet dignity of nature that asks nothing of you but to leave it be. There are many stories told of Artemis, of how she stood firm and unyielding, of how she loved the mountains more than any palace, of how she never bowed her head to anyone, not even the greatest of the gods. She remained always as she had chosen to be, free, strong, and alone, walking her own path beneath the moon. She taught the world that there is another kind of greatness, not found in thrones or crowns, but in being true to yourself, in loving the wild places, in guarding what is gentle and vulnerable, and in walking with quiet courage beneath the stars. Now let your thoughts drift softly out into the moonlight. Imagine the forest at midnight, cool and still, bathed in pale silver light. The trees stand tall and silent. The air is sweet with pine and damp earth. Somewhere upon a distant slope, a twig snaps lightly, and you catch a glimpse of movement, swift and graceful, gone almost before you see it. A flash of silver arrow tip, a dark braid swinging free, a pair of bright eyes that see everything, yet reveal nothing. She pauses, looking down upon the sleeping world, and then she is gone, running lightly up the mountain, fading into the moonlight, free and wild and beautiful, as she has been since the world began, and as she will be forever. Rest now beneath the quiet moon. The huntress is watching. The wild things are safe. The silver light falls gently upon your face, and all is calm, all is watched over, all is at peace. Sleep well, beneath the guardianship of the Lady of the Wild. 11. Hephaestus, the fire within the forge. Not all who dwell upon the holy mountain are bright and radiant like the sun. There is one whose light is of a different kind, the warm, glowing orange light of fire leaping from dark stone, the steady red heat of metal being shaped beneath the hammer, the soft, golden glow that fills a great hall at midnight, when all the world is asleep and only the sparks are awake. His name is Hephaestus, and he is the god of fire, of the forge, of crafts and craftsmanship, of all things shaped by hand and skill and patience. His story began with sorrow. He was born of Zeus and Hera, their son, but he did not come into the world strong and straight and fair. He was born with a limp, his legs not formed as other legs are, his frame less noble to look upon. Hera, seeing him for the first time, was filled with shame and grief, and in a moment of weakness, she did a terrible thing. She took the small, helpless child, and she cast him down from the heights of Olympus, hurling him far out into the dark, empty air, thinking it better that he should vanish than live to bear the mark of imperfection. Down he fell. For a whole day and a whole night he fell, spinning through the sky, until at last he struck the sea with a great, resounding crash. The waters closed over him, deep and dark and cold. But he did not perish. The sea itself took pity on him. Two gentle goddesses who dwell in the quiet depths, Eurynome and the Thetis, found him floating upon the waves, and they took him in. They cared for him, warm and safe, in a hidden grotto beneath the ocean, where the water was always cool and blue and clear, and where the sand was soft and white. And there, in that quiet, hidden place, Hephaestus grew to manhood. He could not run or dance or stride across the mountains as the other gods did. But his hands were strong and sure, broad and clever, capable of things beyond imagining. He found that he loved to work with fire and metal. He would gather scraps of copper and iron and gold that had drifted down from the world above, and he would build small fires, and shape the metal with stone and shell, slowly and carefully, until he could make things of wonder, delicate filigree, shining cups, jewelry so fine it seemed to catch the very light of the sea. As the years passed, his skill grew greater and greater, until there was nothing he could not make. No shape was too difficult, no design too intricate. He could make things that moved as if alive, things that shone with their own inner light, things so beautiful that whoever saw them stood breathless with wonder. He did not forget what had been done to him. He did not rage or curse or seek revenge. Instead, he fashioned a most marvelous chair, exquisitely made, carved from silver and gold and bronze, fitted with jewels that sparkled like stars. It was beautiful beyond compare, and it seemed the most precious gift imaginable. He sent it up to Olympus, as a gift to his mother Hera. When she saw it, she was delighted, and she sat down upon it at once. But the moment she touched it, invisible bands sprang up and held her fast. She could not move. She could not rise. The chair was a prison, and it would not release her. The other gods were alarmed. They sent messengers down to Hephaestus, begging him to come and free his mother, promising him great honors and gifts. But Hephaestus replied simply, "I have no mother there." He would not come. He would not relent. At last, Dionysus, the god of joy and wine, went down to him, and spoke to him gently, and with kindness and persuasion, he brought Hephaestus back up to the high heavens. There, standing before all the gods, limping yet proud, dark-haired and strong, Hephaestus agreed to set Hera free, but only on one condition. He would be given a place among them, honored and respected, and he would be given a wife, Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, the fairest of all beings, to be his own. And so it was agreed. The chains fell away. Hera stood free. And Hephaestus took his place at last upon the mountain he had fallen from, not as a helpless child cast out in shame, but as a master of his craft, honored and needed by them all. He built for himself a great palace and forge, carved deep into the side of a volcanic mountain, where the fire burned eternally and the stone was warm to the touch. His workshop was a place of wonder. Great bellows breathed air into the furnaces, fanning the flames to white heat. Anvils of solid iron rang beneath his hammer. Sparks flew upward in great golden showers, swirling like stars in the smoke. He worked with a steady rhythm, strike, turn, strike again, his brow damp with sweat, his face glowing red in the firelight, his mind seeing the finished thing long before it took shape. He made the thunderbolts that Zeus hurls across the sky. He made the palaces and thrones of the gods. He made the chariots, the armor, the tools, the gifts that shaped the stories of heroes and kings. He even fashioned golden maidens, living and moving, to help him about his forge, for he needed strength and speed to match his skill. He was not handsome, and he knew it. He walked with a heavy, limping step, leaning upon his staff, his face lined and soot-stained. But he had a strength that went far beyond appearance. He was patient. He was kind. He was steady. He knew that perfection does not come easily, that things of worth must be forged in fire, hammered and bent and tested, again and again, until they are strong enough to last forever. He knew that what you carry in your heart and your hands matters far more than how you look or how you walk. And so he became the most beloved of all the gods to ordinary people. For he understood what it is to be imperfect, to struggle, to work hard with your hands, to limp through life yet keep going, to create beauty even when you have been hurt. He taught mortals the secrets of fire and metal, how to shape iron and cast bronze, how to build and to fashion and to make things that endure. He showed them that labor is noble, that skill is a gift, and that the fire within the heart is brighter and more lasting than any beauty that fades with the years. Picture him now, as the evening draws in. The great forge is warm and bright, the firelight dancing upon the walls. The steady ring of the hammer echoes softly, clang, pause, clang, like the heartbeat of the mountain itself. Hephaestus stands before the anvil, strong and quiet, his hands shaping something beautiful from hard, unyielding metal. He does not hurry. He does not boast. He simply works, with patience and care, turning what is rough into something smooth, what is plain into something wonderful. Rest now in that warm, golden glow. Remember that strength comes in many forms. That what is cast down may rise again. That even those who limp may walk with great dignity, and that the truest beauty is the kind you forge for yourself, through patience, courage, and a heart that never gives up. The fire burns steady. The hammer strikes true. And all things, in time, become beautiful. 12. Aphrodite, the beauty born of sea foam. Far away in the deep, dark waters, where the great ocean stretches endlessly beneath the stars, something wonderful was born, not of flesh and blood, nor of mother's womb, but of the pure, wild beauty of the sea itself. Long ago, when Cronus had cast down his father Uranus, the drops that fell from the sky god had fallen into the circling waves. And from those sacred waters, stirred by wind and tide and the soft, endless rhythm of the deep, rose a being of such loveliness that the very water seemed to glow around her. She stepped forth from the white, shimmering foam, her skin smooth and pale as seashell, her hair falling in soft, dark waves that clung to her shoulders, her eyes bright and blue as the depths of the summer ocean. A gentle breeze carried her slowly toward the shore, wrapped in a cloak of mist and silver light, and where she set foot upon the sand, flowers sprang up instantly, sweet and fragrant, blooming at her very touch. Her name was Aphrodite, she who was born of the foam, the goddess of love and beauty, of grace and desire, of all that draws heart to heart and soul to soul. She needed no nurse, no mother, no teacher. She carried within her the wisdom of the waves and the warmth of the sun. She was soft yet strong, gentle yet irresistible, for she had been fashioned by the ancient sea itself, perfect and complete. When she arrived upon the land, the seasons paused to gaze upon her. The wind fell silent. The rivers paused in their course. The birds broke into song, not out of habit, but out of pure delight. Word of her beauty spread swiftly, traveling across valleys and over mountains, until it reached the high halls of Olympus. And when she stepped at last among the immortals, every heart turned toward her. Even Zeus, who had seen all things that were beautiful, paused in wonder. And it was then that Hephaestus, the quiet smith, asked for her as his bride, not out of greed or pride, but because he loved her beauty with a humble, reverent heart. And so it was agreed. The fairest of all beings was given to the craftsman, that beauty and skill might dwell together. But Aphrodite was not merely lovely to look upon. She carried within her a power older and deeper than any throne or crown. She was the force that binds all living things together, the quiet, irresistible pull that draws the sun to the earth, the moon to the sea to the soil, and heart to heart. Where she walked, life flourished. Trees grew heavy with fruit. Flowers opened their petals wide. The air grew soft and sweet, filled with a gentle warmth that seemed to wrap everything in kindness. She was attended by her companions, Eros, the bright, winged boy whose arrows kindle love in every breast, the three Graces, radiant and joyful, who danced around her and clothed her in splendor, and gentle Hero, who watched over her with care, knowing that love is the greatest gift of all. Aphrodite taught the world something that no one else could teach, that beauty is not something to be feared or envied, but something to be cherished. That love is not weakness, but the very thing that makes life worth living. That even the hardest heart may be softened by kindness, and that even the plainest face may shine with beauty when it is loved. She showed that love comes in many forms, gentle and quiet, bright and passionate, loyal and enduring, and that all are sacred. Yet she was not without depth, nor without lessons to teach. She knew that beauty may fade, and that love may bring sorrow as well as joy. She saw hearts broken, vows forgotten, and great love brought low by time or fate. But she taught that even so, love is worth the risk. That it is better to have loved and felt the warmth than to have lived always in the cold. That the beauty of the soul outlasts the bloom of youth, and that true loveliness is kindness, gentleness, and grace. She loved the sea most of all, for it was her first home. When trouble came or her heart grew heavy, she would slip away from the high halls and return to the shore. She would walk along the wet, glistening sand at dawn, when the waves rolled in soft and white, and the breeze carried the salt scent of the ocean. She would stand with her feet in the cool, foaming water, and the sea would whisper to her, calming her spirit, reminding her of where she came from, of strength, of endless change, of beauty renewed with every rising tide. And so refreshed, she would return once more, carrying her light and warmth to all the world. There are many stories told of her, of how she loved deeply, of how she was kind to those who were gentle, and of how she stood firm against arrogance and pride. She showed that even the gods may be moved by love, and that love is the oldest, strongest power in all the world, stronger than thunderbolts, stronger than crowns, stronger than time itself. Now let your mind drift down to the seashore, soft and quiet at the break of day. The sky is pale rose and pearl, and the waves roll gently in, breaking in a soft, white murmur upon the sand. There, standing at the water's edge, you see her, fair and radiant, her gown shimmering like the surface of the sea, her hair blowing softly in the breeze. She does not speak, but her presence fills the air with peace and sweetness. She turns and looks toward you, and her smile is warm and gentle, reminding you that you are loved, that you are beautiful, and that you belong to this wide, wonderful world. Breathe in the fresh, salt air. Feel the soft sand beneath your feet. Let the gentle rhythm of the waves wash away all weariness and care. Remember that love surrounds you always, like the sea and the sky, soft and endless and sure. Rest now, wrapped in beauty and peace, beneath the smile of the one born of the foam. 13. Athena, wisdom born of the mind of Zeus. There are many ways to come into the world. Some are born of the earth, some of the sea, some of the love between two hearts. But Athena, the great goddess of wisdom, was born in a way unlike any other, unique, marvelous, and full of meaning. Long before her birth, Zeus had received a solemn prophecy. It was spoken by Gaia, the ancient mother of all things, and the words were heavy with fate. The child who would one day be born to Metis, the wisest and most clever of all the goddesses, would be greater than her father. She would surpass him in strength and in counsel, and in time, she would rule in his place. Zeus feared this prophecy. He had overthrown his own father, and he knew well how children grow to surpass their parents, how power passes from hand to hand. So when Metis became great with child, he did a thing that grieved him, yet he believed it necessary. He swallowed her whole. He hoped that by doing so, he might keep her wisdom, and keep the child from ever being born. But he could not swallow fate. Within him, Metis continued to live, and to work. She fashioned a helmet and a robe, and she prepared her child for the day she should step forth. And as the time drew near, Zeus began to suffer. A great, throbbing pain took hold of his head, burning and terrible, growing worse with every passing hour. It grew so great that he could no longer sit upon his throne, nor rule the heavens, nor rest. He groaned aloud, and the sound shook the very peaks of Olympus. At last, in agony, he called to Hephaestus, the master of the forge, and bade him split open his head with his axe, that the pain might be released. Hephaestus did as he was bidden. He struck once, gently and surely, upon the brow of Zeus. And from that opening, there stepped forth a daughter, fully grown, fully armed, tall and strong and glorious. She wore a gleaming helmet of gold, and carried a spear in her hand, and upon her arm was a shield of wondrous craft. And as she stepped out into the light, she gave a great, clear cry, not of a babe, but of a warrior, and the sound echoed across the world. The sun shone brighter at her coming. The mountains lifted up their heads. And Zeus, gazing upon her, felt the pain vanish instantly, replaced by wonder and deep, quiet pride. For he saw at once that she was not like other children. She would never seek to cast him down. She would be his greatest joy, his truest counsel, and his most beloved companion. Athena was the goddess of wisdom, but not wisdom alone. She was also the goddess of just and noble war, not war for greed or glory, but war for the defense of home and kin, for the protection of the weak, for the preservation of order and peace. She was the goddess of craft and skill, of the weaving and the plough, of the building and the carving, of all things made with mind and hand working together in harmony. She was calm, clear-eyed, and thoughtful. She did not act in haste. She did not shout or rage or give way to passion. She listened, she considered, and then she spoke, straight to the heart of the matter, her words few but weighty, her counsel always true. She chose as her symbol the olive tree, gentle, useful, and enduring. It does not grow tall and proud like the pine, nor spread wide its branches like the oak. It grows slowly, steadily, and its fruit is precious, its oil a light in the darkness, its wood strong and good. That, she said, is better than any weapon, peace, plenty, and the gentle fruit of long endeavor. She taught mortals how to tend the olive, how to weave cloth upon the loom, how to yoke oxen to the plough, how to build ships that sail the seas in safety. She gave them the gift of clear thought, of reason, of justice, and of wise counsel. she showed them that strength is not only in the sword, but in the mind that guides the hand that holds it. She was also the protector of cities. She loved the quiet, ordered life, the laws, the temples, the homes, the people dwelling together in peace. She became the guardian of the great city that would one day bear her name, where she gave her olive tree to the people, and they chose her above all others, building for her a temple high upon the rock, where her sacred flame burned eternally, and her wisdom guided them through the ages. Athena was known too for her calm dignity. She stood often beside Zeus upon his throne, and even the proudest titans would pause to listen when she spoke. She saw through pretense and flattery. She valued intelligence, courage, and honor above all else. She loved those who used their wits for good, who were patient and steady, who sought to understand before they acted. And she stood firm against all that was foolish, cruel, or vain. Picture her now, standing upon the heights, calm and noble in her bearing. Her helmet is pushed back, revealing a face of grave and gentle beauty. Her eyes are bright and keen, seeing everything, yet judging with mercy. She holds her spear not in anger, but in readiness, to defend what is good, to uphold what is just. The olive tree grows beside her, silver and green in the sunlight, a symbol of peace and plenty. There is a quiet strength about her, a deep, unshakable calm, for she knows what is worth fighting for, and she knows that wisdom outlasts every weapon ever forged. So let your mind grow quiet and clear, like hers. Let your thoughts settle into order and calm. Remember that strength and wisdom may dwell together, that courage and kindness are not opposites, and that the greatest power of all is the power to think clearly, to act justly, and to remain steady through every change. Athena stands as a reminder that we carry within us something greater than fear, the light of reason, the gift of understanding, and the quiet strength that comes from knowing what is right. Rest now in that clear, golden light. All is in order. All is well. And wisdom watches over you, calm and sure, as you drift softly into sleep. 14. Hermes, the swift messenger and the boundary crosser. There is one among the immortals who moves more swiftly than the wind, who speaks more quickly than thought, who knows every path and every hidden place between heaven, earth, and the deep realm below. His name is Hermes, the messenger, the guide, the friend of travelers, the guardian of boundaries, and the god of all things clever, curious, and free. He was born in a quiet cave, deep within the mountains of Arcadia, far from the halls of Olympus. His mother was Maia, gentle and beautiful, one of the old Titan line, and his father was Zeus himself. He did not lie still in his cradle for long. On the very first day of his life, while his mother slept peacefully, the infant Hermes slipped silently from her side, stepped out into the fresh morning air, and set off to see the world. He walked steadily upon his new, little feet, his eyes bright and curious, taking in everything, the flowers, the stones, the birds, the wide blue sky. He had been born with a clever mind and a light heart, and he was already eager to know all things. It was on that same first day that he found a herd of cattle grazing peacefully in a green valley, cattle belonging to his elder brother Apollo. They were beautiful creatures, sleek and white, and Hermes was so delighted by them that he decided, in his bold, childlike way, to take them for himself. He drove them backward along the path, so that their footprints pointed the wrong way, and he wove sandals of twigs to cover his own tracks, so that no one could tell where he had come from. When he reached the cave where he had been born, he did something even more wonderful. He took 2 dry branches, rubbed them together until they blazed into flame, and so he was the very first to discover the secret of making fire. He sacrificed 2 of the cattle to the gods, honoring them with the portion that was due, and then he slipped quietly back into his cradle, wrapping the blankets around him and pretending to be fast asleep, as innocent as any babe could be. When Apollo discovered that his cattle were gone, he was furious. He tracked the thief all the way to the cave, and when he saw the small, sleeping child, he could scarcely believe his eyes. He seized Hermes and carried him up to Olympus, before the great throne of Zeus, to demand justice. There, before all the gods, Hermes stood up, small, bright-eyed, and smiling, and he denied everything with such grace and wit that the assembled gods could scarcely keep from laughing. Even Apollo, angry as he was, found himself smiling in spite of himself. Zeus too looked upon his youngest son, and saw the cleverness in his eyes, and the boldness in his bearing, and he laughed aloud. "There is no use in denying it," Zeus said gently. "You are the cleverest of all my children. But you must make amends." And so Hermes brought forth the most wonderful thing he had made, a musical instrument, fashioned from the shell of a tortoise, with 7 strings of sheepgut stretched across it. It was the very first lyre. When he touched the strings, a sound came forth so sweet, so clear, and so hauntingly beautiful that Apollo forgot all about his cattle. His anger melted away like snow in spring. He gazed at the lyre, and he listened to the music, and he said at once, "I will give you the cattle, and all the privileges of a god, if only you will give me this instrument." And so the bargain was struck. Hermes became the friend and companion of Apollo, and the two were ever afterward close, one bright and serious, the other swift and light-hearted, balancing one another perfectly. Zeus, seeing how clever and quick his son was, gave him a great honor. He made Hermes his own personal messenger, and the guide of all souls who must travel down to the realm of Hades. He gave him a pair of golden sandals, winged and immortal, which carried him over land and sea swifter than the rushing wind. He gave him a golden cap, and a golden staff called the Caduceus, around which 2 gentle serpents were woven in an eternal spiral, a symbol of peace, of healing, and of the power to guide all things safely to their destination. From that day onward, Hermes traveled endlessly. He did not dwell always upon Olympus, sitting upon a throne. He preferred the open road, the fresh air, the feeling of swift movement beneath his feet. He walked among mortals, unseen and unrecognized, watching how they lived, helping those who were kind and honest, and teaching them many useful things. He gave them weights and measures, so that they might deal fairly with one another. He taught them how to travel safely, how to speak with grace, how to make bargains and keep promises. He was the guardian of travelers, the protector of strangers, and the friend of all who move through the world. He had another, quieter duty too, to guide the souls of those who had passed away, leading them gently down the long, winding road to the realm of Hades. He did not come as a fearful messenger. He came with kindness and calm, taking each soul by the hand, comforting them, and guiding them safely across the threshold, so that no one need be afraid to make that final journey. He was the god of boundaries, the one who stands between this world and the next, between the living and the dead, between what is known and what is hidden. He crossed every line, traveled every road, and knew every secret path. Hermes was never proud or distant. He laughed easily, he loved a clever trick, and he was always ready to help. He showed that greatness does not need to be solemn, that power does not need to be stern, and that kindness, wit, and a light heart are just as strong as thunderbolts. He taught us that every path leads somewhere, that every boundary may be crossed, and that curiosity is a gift, for the more you see of the world, the more you understand it. Now imagine him, as you drift softly towards sleep. Picture the golden sandals gleaming in the sunlight. See the staff in his hand, and the 2 serpents winding gently around it. He stands at the edge of the road, calm and kind, watching over all who travel in the dark. He moves with a soft, steady rhythm, swift yet gentle, never hurrying, never resting, carrying messages of peace and comfort from one end of the world to the other. The road is open before you. The way is clear. The swift and gentle guide watches over you, wherever your dreams may take you. Fear not the dark, nor the distance, nor the turning of the way. For Hermes walks beside you, light of step and kind of heart, guiding you safely through the night, until the morning light returns once more. 15. Dionysus, the joy in the vine and the wild heart. Of all the children born to Zeus, none had a beginning more sorrowful, nor a spirit more full of life, than Dionysus, the god of wine, of celebration, of the ripening fruit, and of the wild, joyful ecstasy that dwells deep in the heart of the world. His mother was Semele, a princess of mortal kind, beautiful and gentle, whom Zeus loved deeply. But Hera, in her jealousy, came to Semele disguised as an old, wise woman, and planted a thought in her heart: if he is truly the great king of heaven, let him come to you in all his glory, as he appears to the gods. If he loves you, he will not refuse. So when Zeus came to her, Semele asked this one thing, that he should reveal himself in his full divine splendor, in the form he wore before the high throne. Zeus knew that no mortal might behold that glory and live. He begged her to ask anything else, any gift, any promise, but not this. Yet she insisted, and Zeus, bound by his sacred oath, could not refuse. He appeared before her in his full majesty, the thunder in his hand, the lightning blazing around him, the fire of heaven pouring forth in all its terrible, radiant power. And Semele, unable to bear the brightness, was consumed in that golden flame. She died, but her child was saved. Zeus reached into the fire, snatched the unborn babe from her heart, and sewed him safely within his own thigh, carrying him there until his time was fully come. And so Dionysus was born, half mortal, half divine, born of fire and grief, yet filled with a joy that could never be quenched. As he grew, he wandered far and wide, accompanied by gentle companions and wild creatures alike. He wore a crown of ivy and leaves, and carried a staff wreathed in green vines and pine cones. Wherever he went, he taught the people the most wonderful secret of all, how to tend the vine, how to gather the purple clusters when they grew heavy and sweet, and how to press from them the rich, dark wine that warms the heart and makes the spirit glad. He showed them that the grape is a gift of the earth, slow to ripen, sweetest after the heat of summer, and that within its juice lies a power both gentle and wild, the power to wash away sorrow, to bring laughter, to make the timid bold and the weary light of heart. But Dionysus taught more than just the making of wine. He taught the joy of celebration. He taught that life is meant to be lived fully, to be cherished, to be sung and danced and shared. He loved music and song, the sound of pipes and drums echoing through the valleys, the soft rustle of leaves and the laughter of companions beneath the stars. He loved the wild places, the deep woods, the mountain glades, the cool shadows where the air smells of earth and pine and growing things. He showed that there is a wildness in every heart, a freedom, a joy that cannot be chained or tamed, that belongs to the mountains and the forests and the open sky. Yet he was not merely a god of pleasure. He was also a god of deep emotion, of transformation, of the changing seasons and the turning of the year. The vine grows bare and dead through the cold winter, seeming to have perished entirely, yet when spring returns, it bursts forth again, green and fresh, putting forth leaves and fruit in endless abundance. So too is Dionysus. He represents the life that seems to vanish, only to return stronger and more beautiful than before. He reminds us that sorrow does not last forever, that joy comes back in its season, and that even in the darkest time, new life is quietly growing. He was gentle to those who welcomed him, kind to those who honored the gifts of the earth. But he was stern to those who turned him away, who denied his divinity, who refused to make space for joy and freedom in their ordered lives. He showed that it is foolish to try to control everything, to banish all wildness, to forbid the heart from singing. There is a balance in all things, order and freedom, work and rest, calm and celebration, and Dionysus stands for that second half, the necessary, beautiful half that makes life sweet. He journeyed to distant lands, teaching his secrets wherever he went, gathering followers around him who loved him and sang his praises. And in time, he came at last to Olympus, where he took his place among the immortal gods. Even Hera, who had once caused his mother's death, looked upon him and saw that he was filled with kindness and grace, and her anger faded away. Dionysus, who had known sorrow and loss, harbored no bitterness. He offered her wine and peace, and so he showed that generosity of spirit is greater than any wrong suffered. Now imagine him as evening falls. The sun has dipped below the horizon, and the air is soft and warm. Fires are lit in the open glade, their flames dancing golden and red against the darkening trees. There is the sweet scent of ripening fruit, of pine and damp earth, of wine poured out upon the ground as an offering. Dionysus stands among his friends, his face glowing in the firelight, his smile warm and welcoming. He fills the cups, and he speaks gently, bidding everyone cast aside their cares, their worries, their fears. Life is good, he seems to say. The earth gives us its fruit. The stars shine above us. We are together, and we are alive. Rejoice! Let that joy settle softly in your heart now. You do not need to carry your burdens always. You may set them down, just for a little while. You may breathe in the sweet air, feel the warmth of the fire, and remember that life is a gift, beautiful and changing, full of seasons both dark and bright. The vine will flourish again. The grapes will ripen. And joy will always return, soft and sweet, when its season comes. Rest now, with a gentle warmth in your heart and a quiet smile upon your lips. The God of joy watches over you, and the world is good. Sleep well. 16. The first mortals and the age of gold. Long after the great gods had taken their places, long after the sky was high and the sea was settled in its bounds, the world lay beautiful and waiting, yet empty. The mountains stood in their grandeur, the rivers ran clear and strong, the forests grew tall and green, and the seasons turned in their gentle order, but there were no eyes to see the beauty, no hands to tend the earth, no voices to give thanks or to tell the stories. So the gods, looking down upon the fair land, resolved to fill it with living beings who would walk upon the soil, breathe the air, and love the world they had made. It was Prometheus who undertook this sacred work. He was one of the old Titan line, wise and far-seeing, who had chosen to stand beside Zeus in the great war, and who was honored and trusted by the Olympians. Prometheus loved the earth deeply, and he loved the beings he meant to create. He took the soft, rich clay from the banks of the great rivers, where the soil was most fertile and pure, and he shaped it with his hands, carefully, lovingly, giving form to limbs and faces, fashioning them in the likeness of the gods themselves, upright and noble, gazing toward the sky rather than bowing to the ground. Then he called upon Athena, the goddess of wisdom, and she breathed into the clay the breath of life, a spark of divine fire, a glimmer of eternal soul, so that these creatures might think, might choose, might understand, and might yearn for what is good and true. Thus the first mortals came into being, not born of woman, but shaped by love and wisdom, made from the earth and gifted with a portion of heaven's own light. And the time in which they lived was called the Golden Age. It was a time beyond imagining. There was no harsh winter, no scorching summer, no sickness, no sorrow, no old age. The seasons moved together in perfect harmony, soft and mild, always like the sweetest days of late spring. The earth brought forth its bounty freely and abundantly, without being plowed or sown or tended. Wheat grew tall and golden in the fields of its own accord. Fruit hung heavy and sweet from every bough. The rivers ran with milk and honey, and clear, cool water bubbled from every hillside. There was no need for labor, no hunger, no want. All things were shared in common. There were no cities, no walls, no ships, no weapons, no laws, no judges, for none were needed. People lived together in peace and kindness, their hearts pure, their thoughts noble, their days filled with gentle work and quiet joy. They lived for a very long time, and they remained always young. Their bodies did not weaken, their hair did not turn white, their steps did not falter. They walked and talked with the gods, who came down often from Olympus to visit them, to sit beside them by the river banks, to share their feasts and listen to their songs. There was no barrier between heaven and earth. The divine ones were known and loved, not feared. All was friendship, reverence, and peace. And when at last their time came to depart, they did not die in pain or fear. A gentle sleep fell upon them, soft and sweet, and they passed away as if drifting into a quiet dream. And their spirits remained upon the earth, invisible but ever present, guardians of mortals, givers of blessings, watching unseen over the fields and the cities and all who come after them. For many ages the Golden Age endured. But nothing in this world remains forever the same. Time flows onward like a river, and all things change. Zeus, seeing how the mortals lived in ease and innocence, began to consider their future. He knew that innocence is beautiful, but that strength is born of struggle, and wisdom comes through understanding both good and evil. He knew that these beings must grow, must learn, must stand upon their own feet and make their own choices, or they would remain forever children, never reaching the fullness of what they were meant to be. Prometheus, however, looked upon his creation with love and pity. He saw that mortals were fragile and weak, and in many ways defenseless against the wild beasts and the changing seasons. He wished to give them more, to give them fire, that most precious gift, which belongs rightly only to the gods. With fire, they might warm themselves in the cold, harden their tools, cook their food, and shine a light into the darkness. But Zeus forbade it. He said that if mortals possessed fire, they would grow too strong, too proud, and would one day rival the gods themselves. Prometheus thought deeply upon this. He loved his people, and he believed that they deserved the means to grow and to thrive. So he resolved to act. He took a dry stalk of fennel, and he went secretly to the great chariot of the sun, and there he stole a spark of divine fire. He carried it safely hidden within the stalk, and he brought it down to mortals, giving them the great gift, teaching them how to tend it, how to feed it, how to keep it alive. And so fire came to the world, a small, glowing thing, yet holding within it warmth, light, protection, and the seed of all future arts and sciences. When Zeus looked down and saw the bright flames rising from the dwellings of mortals, and saw how they grew in skill and strength, he understood at once what had been done. His heart was angry, for he saw the prophecy in it, that mortals would rise, and that the order of things would change. Yet he also knew that Prometheus had acted out of love, and that the course of things could not now be undone. The Golden Age had passed. The time of innocence was over. And the great, long journey of humanity, of struggle, achievement, wisdom, and hope, had truly begun. So it was that the world changed. The earth began to withhold its bounty. The seasons grew sharp and distinct, cold winter, burning summer, rain and wind and storm. Mortals had to learn to sow and to reap, to build shelter, to clothe themselves, to work and to wait. They had to face hardship, illness, and death. Yet they also possessed fire. They possessed skill. They possessed the divine spark within them, given by the Titan who loved them, and they possessed the freedom to choose their own path. Picture now those early days, soft and golden and peaceful, before the world grew hard. Imagine walking through the green fields beneath a mild, cloud-dappled sky. The air is sweet with flowers. The fruit hangs ripe and glowing within easy reach. The gods walk among you, calm and kind. There is no hurry, no worry, no fear. All is given freely, and all is shared with love. That time is gone, and yet something of it remains, deep within every heart, a memory of peace, a longing for goodness, a quiet certainty that the world was meant to be beautiful and kind. Rest now in that golden memory. Let the warmth of the ancient peace wrap around you like a soft cloak. Remember that though times change and ages pass, the divine spark within you never fades. You are made of earth and of heaven, and you carry within you the light that Prometheus gave, burning bright and eternal, guiding you through every age to come. 17. The sacrifice at Mecone and the boundless gift. In those early days, when mortals had begun to walk upon the earth and the Golden Age had drawn toward its close, there came a time of meeting between gods and men, a time when the two worlds still drew near, when voices could be heard across the distance, and when decisions were made that would shape the fate of all generations yet to come. The place was called Mecone, a quiet, sheltered valley where the grass grew soft and the trees stood tall and peaceful. There, the mortals gathered together, and the gods came down from Olympus to sit beside them, and it was agreed that a great sacrifice should be made, and that the ways of offering and honor should be established once and for all. Prometheus stood forth, wise and thoughtful, loving the people he had fashioned with his own hands. He wished to make things just. He wished to ensure that mortals should not give up all the best things they possessed, keeping only what was poor and hard, while the gods received every good and precious portion. So he took a great ox, fat and strong, and he divided the body into 2 portions, laying them out carefully before the assembled company. Into one pile he placed the meat, the rich, nourishing flesh, sweet and good to eat, and he wrapped it all carefully inside the hide, concealing it so that it looked rough and unappealing. Into the other pile he placed the white, glistening bones, and he covered them over with the rich, golden, shining fat, so that from the outside it appeared to be the larger, finer portion, overflowing with richness and delight. When all was laid out, he turned to Zeus, the great king, and he said, "Choose now, most glorious and mighty ruler, whichever portion your heart desires. And so it shall be established forever, this shall be the portion of the gods, and this shall be the portion of mortal kind." Zeus looked upon the 2 piles, and he saw the one covered in gleaming fat, appearing so rich and abundant, and he chose that one for himself. When the covering was drawn back, and he saw the white bones laid bare, and the other pile revealed the rich, sweet meat, he understood at once what had been done. He saw the cleverness, the kindness, and the gentle trickery of Prometheus. And though his heart was heavy, and he was angry that mortals should keep the better part for themselves, he honored the choice he had made. He did not undo it. And so it has remained ever since. When mortals sacrifice to the gods, they burn the bones and the fat upon the altar, sending the sweet scent upward to the heavens, and they keep the meat to share among themselves, to nourish their bodies and strengthen their hearts. But Zeus was not pleased. He saw that mortals would need fire to cook their meat, to soften their food, to warm their hearts and shine light into their darkness. And so he withheld fire from them entirely. He said, "You shall have the rich portion to eat, but you shall not have fire to cook it. You shall eat it raw and hard, in hunger and in toil, so that you may remember your place." Prometheus heard this, and his heart was moved with compassion. He saw his people shivering in the cold, struggling with food too hard to chew, defenseless against the beasts of the wild and the dark of the night. He could not bear to see them suffer. So he waited until the sun had set, until the world was wrapped in shadow, and then he took a long, dry stalk of fennel, which burns slowly and holds the flame deep within its core. He made his way unseen to the eastern horizon, where the sun rises each morning, and there he waited until the great golden chariot drew near. Then he reached out, and he touched the glowing embers, and he caught a single spark deep within the hollow stalk. He carried it safely away, hidden from every eye, and he brought it down to the dwellings of mortals. He taught them how to tend it, how to feed it with dry twigs and leaves, how to keep it alive through the night and wake it again at dawn. He showed them how to place the meat above the heat, until it grew soft and sweet and fragrant, filling the air with a delicious scent that drifted upward to the heavens. And so Zeus looked down from Olympus, and he saw the flames rising bright and warm from 1,000 hearths, and he smelled the sweet savor of the cooked meat, and he knew that his command had been broken. He knew that Prometheus had done this thing out of love for the beings he had created. Zeus was greatly angered, yet he could not take back what had been given. Once fire had been brought to mortals, it could not be taken away. It was theirs forever, a gift passed down from generation to generation, a light kept alive by human hands, a symbol of all the arts and skills and greatness that would one day grow from that small, glowing spark. But the price was heavy. Zeus turned his wrath upon Prometheus. He ordered his mighty servants to seize the Titan, and to carry him far away to the ends of the earth, to a desolate, wind-swept mountain peak in the distant, icy lands. There he was chained fast to the rock, with bonds of adamant that no hand could loosen, driven deep into the stone. And every day, a great eagle would come, sent by the will of Zeus, and tear at his side, feeding upon his liver. And every night, the wound would heal, so that the suffering might begin again at dawn. Prometheus endured this punishment for long ages, bound to the cold rock, lashed by wind and snow and storm, yet he never bowed his head. He never repented of what he had done. He never surrendered the secret he knew, that one day, a son would be born who would be greater than his father, and who would overthrow the rule of heaven. He stood firm, enduring all pain, because he knew that he had done what was right. He knew that mortals deserved warmth and light and nourishment. And he knew that one day, far in the future, a great hero would come, strong, brave, and kind, who would break the chains, slay the eagle, and set him free. And so it was established, the gods receive the honor and the smoke rising upward, but mortals keep the meat and the strength, and they keep the fire, that bright, dangerous, glorious gift. They must work for it. They must tend it carefully. It may burn them if they are careless. It may consume their homes if it rages uncontrolled. But it is theirs. It warms them in the cold. It feeds them when they are hungry. It lights their way through the dark. And it reminds them, every time they see the flames leap upward, of the one who suffered endlessly, chained to the lonely mountain, so that they might have warmth and light and hope. Now let your mind drift to that quiet, ancient hearth. See the flames dancing, golden and red. Feel the gentle warmth spreading outward, wrapping around you. Remember that every fire that has ever burned, every candle that has ever shone, every light that has ever guided someone home in the dark, began with one brave, selfless act, one spark carried in secret, through wind and shadow, given freely, at great cost, so that you might not live in darkness. Rest now, wrapped in that gentle glow. The gift is yours. The light is yours. And somewhere, in the quiet of the night, the brave Titan watches over you still, knowing that his suffering was worth it, knowing that you are warm, and fed, and alive, and free. Sleep well, beside the fire that burns forever. 18. Pandora, the box of all things. Zeus looked down upon the world of mortals, and he saw that they possessed fire. He saw them growing strong, skillful, and wise, building homes, tending fields, and living with courage and hope. And though he admired their spirit, he knew that nothing truly pure and innocent can remain so forever. He knew that strength must be balanced by humility, that wisdom must walk hand in hand with understanding, and that every great gift carries with it a weight and a cost. So he resolved to send them something more, not a punishment, but a lesson, a reminder of the full measure of what it means to be alive. He commanded Hephaestus, the master craftsman, to fashion a being of surpassing beauty and grace. From the earth and water he shaped her, giving her form as lovely as any goddess, soft and perfect in every way. Athena clothed her in rich, embroidered robes, and taught her the arts of weaving and all the gentle skills of the home. Aphrodite breathed into her such grace and charm that no heart could resist her. Hermes gave her a clever mind, a gentle voice, and the power to speak sweetly and well. And to all these gifts, they added one more, a name. They called her Pandora, which means the all-gifted, because every god had given her something wonderful. But Zeus also gave her a great, heavy jar, or box, carved with intricate patterns and bound with gold, and he placed within it everything that affects the life of mortal kind. Into it he placed all the sicknesses that might come upon the body, all the griefs that might weigh upon the heart, all the hardships that test the spirit, all the wars, all the cares, all the bitterness, and all the pain. But he also placed inside every good and precious thing, courage, kindness, patience, hope, joy, healing, and love. He sealed the lid fast, and he gave the box to Pandora, commanding her solemnly, "Keep this safe. Do not open it. Guard it well, for within it lies the fate of all your kind." Then Hermes led Pandora down to the dwellings of mortals, and he gave her to Epimetheus, the brother of Prometheus, the one whose name means afterthought. Epimetheus was kind and gentle, but he was not wise like his brother. He had been warned never to accept any gift from Zeus, yet when he saw Pandora, fair, smiling, and full of grace, he forgot all warnings, and welcomed her gladly into his home. For a long time, Pandora kept the box closed. She would sit beside it, tracing the beautiful carvings with her fingers, wondering what lay within. It hummed softly, as if something alive stirred inside. Sometimes voices whispered from within, sweet and inviting, bidding her open the lid and see the wonders they promised. At other times, low, troubling sounds rose up, making her draw back in fear. But the curiosity grew within her day by day, a gentle, persistent longing to know what had been given to her, to see every gift that the gods had bestowed. At last, one quiet evening, when the light was soft and the house was still, she could bear it no longer. She lifted the golden latch, and she raised the lid just a little, to peek inside. In that moment, all the things that were trapped within flew out, swift as birds, dark as shadows, spreading out across the world before she could close the lid again. Sickness, sorrow, hardship, pain, envy, anger, and grief, they all escaped, flying through the open window and scattering across the face of the earth. Pandora cried out in alarm, and she slammed the lid shut, trembling and weeping, fearful of what she had done. But it was too late. The harmful things were already gone, loose in the world forever. Yet when she looked down, she saw that one thing remained, resting quietly at the very bottom of the box, calm and unafraid. It was hope. She had not flown out with the others. She had stayed behind, gentle and faithful, waiting to be called upon. And so it came to pass, all the ills of the world were released, to be part of mortal life forevermore. But hope remained, safe within the box, given to humanity as a precious gift, to be carried always in the heart, to be drawn upon in every time of darkness, to be a light when all other lights have gone out. This was the lesson Zeus had wished to teach. He did not send suffering out of cruelty. He sent it because he knew that mortals could not remain forever innocent, sheltered and protected like children. To be truly alive, to grow and to become strong, they must know both sides of life. They must know hardship, so they may learn resilience. They must know sorrow, so they may learn compassion. They must know loss, so they may learn to cherish what they have. And above all, they must carry hope with them always, the one thing that can never be taken away, that shines brightest when the night is darkest, that makes every burden bearable and every struggle worth undertaking. So do not think of Pandora as foolish or weak. She was not a curse sent to ruin the world. She was the one who brought us the fullness of life, with all its beauty and all its pain, all its joy and all its tears. And most of all, she was the one who kept safe the dearest gift of all, the certainty that things may get better, that tomorrow can be different, that no winter lasts forever, and that no heart need ever be entirely without light. Now let your thoughts turn gently inward. Imagine that box resting quietly within your own heart. All the cares and sorrows of the world may swirl around you, it is true. But deep within you, untouched and safe, lies hope. She is there, calm and bright, waiting for you whenever you need her. She does not promise that there will be no pain, no difficulty, no darkness. She promises only that the darkness will end. That you will find strength. That you will rise again. And that the sun will return, to shine upon you once more. Rest now, with that golden gift held safe within your breast. Whatever troubles may come, whatever shadows may fall, remember, the lid is closed, and hope remains. She is yours, always and forever. Sleep well, guarded by the sweetest gift the gods ever gave. 19. The Great Flood and the New Beginning. Age followed age, and the world changed. The Golden Age passed away, and after it came the Silver Age, and then the Bronze Age. With each passing generation, innocence faded a little more. The hearts of mortals grew harder, their lives shorter, their struggles sharper. They learned the arts of war and built weapons of bronze. They turned away from the gods, and they grew proud, and cruel, and forgetful of all kindness. They broke their oaths. They harmed the weak. They cared more for power than for justice. Zeus looked down from the heights of Olympus, and his heart was heavy with sorrow. He saw the violence spreading across the earth. He saw the strong oppressing the weak. He saw children turning against their parents and strangers driven away instead of welcomed. He called the gods together in council, and he said, "This cannot continue. The world has grown corrupt and bitter. I will send a great flood and wash away this generation, that the earth may be cleansed and begin anew." But among all the people living upon the earth, there were two who had kept their hearts pure and their hands clean. They were Deucalion, the son of Prometheus, gentle and just like his father, and his wife Pyrrha, the daughter of Pandora, beautiful and faithful. They loved one another, and they honored the gods, and they walked with kindness through the world. They alone remembered the old ways, and they kept their homes and their hearts free from greed and cruelty. Prometheus knew what was to come. He warned his son, and told him to build a great wooden chest, strong and watertight, and to store within it all that they would need to survive. So Deucalion and Pyrrha set to work. They felled great trees and hewed the timber, and they built the chest broad and deep, and they made it strong against wind and wave. And when all was ready, and the sky began to darken, they stepped inside, and closed the door, and waited. Then the rain began to fall, not a gentle shower, but a terrible, endless downpour. It rained for 9 days and 9 nights, without ceasing. The rivers rose up and burst their banks. The sea swept in over the land. The valleys filled, and the hills disappeared, until only the very highest peaks still stood above the waters. All the dwellings, all the fields, all the people and all the beasts, everything was swallowed by the great, grey flood. The world was reduced to sky and water, and nothing else remained. Inside the chest, Deucalion and Pyrrha floated on. The waters tossed them, and the wind howled around them, and the darkness was deep and terrible. But they held fast to one another, and they did not fear. They trusted that the gods would preserve them, if they remained true and good. And at last, on the 10th day, the rain ceased. The waters began to fall. And the chest came to rest gently upon the slopes of a great mountain, its peak still above the waves. That mountain was called Parnassus, sacred to Apollo, and it stood firm when all the world was drowned. Deucalion opened the door, and stepped out. The air was still and clean, and the sky was clear and blue. But all around them stretched a vast, empty waste of water and mud. There were no trees, no houses, no roads, no people. The world was silent, and bare, and new-made. They stood together upon the mountainside, and they wept, not for themselves, but for all that had been lost. And then they prayed, quietly and humbly, asking the gods what they should do, for they were alone, and the world was empty. A voice came to them, soft and solemn, speaking from the very earth beneath their feet, "Veil your heads, and cast behind you the bones of your great mother." Deucalion thought deeply upon these words. Then he smiled, and said gently to Pyrrha, "The great mother is the earth herself. And the bones of the earth are the stones that lie scattered upon the ground. That is what we must do." So they veiled their heads, and they walked down the mountainside, and they gathered stones from the ground. And as they walked, they cast the stones behind them, over their shoulders, not looking back. And a wonderful thing happened. The stones that Deucalion cast fell upon the earth, and they began to change. They took shape, and grew warm, and stood up, and they became men, strong and enduring, formed from the hardness of the rock. And the stones that Pyrrha cast became women, graceful and steadfast, fashioned with beauty and care. Step by step, as they walked, the empty land began to fill again. People rose up behind them, full of life, and hope, and strength, to dwell upon the earth once more. And so the world was born again, not born of blood, but born of stone. That is why mortals are so enduring, so patient, so strong. They carry within them the hardness and the strength of the rock from which they came. They are made of earth, and yet they are capable of goodness, and kindness, and love. Deucalion and Pyrrha taught them how to live simply and justly. They taught them to honor the gods, to care for the earth, and to walk gently upon the land. And slowly, little by little, the fields were planted again, and the houses were built, and the world grew green and fair once more. So this is the story of the great cleansing, and of the new beginning that rose from the waters. It tells us that even when everything is lost, goodness remains. That when the world is washed clean, it may begin again, fairer and better than before. And that hope is never truly drowned, nor kindness ever truly lost. Now let your mind drift gently over those ancient waters. See the great wooden chest floating calmly through the storm, carrying two faithful hearts across the dark flood. See the rain cease, and the blue sky return, and the mountain peak rise up to meet them. And then imagine the stones springing to life, strong, bright, and full of promise, filling the empty land with life once more. All things are made new. The earth is healed. And goodness survives, even through the greatest storm. Rest now, in the quiet after the flood. The waters have receded. The air is fresh and sweet. And the world lies before you, clean and bright, waiting to be filled with goodness and light. Sleep well, knowing that every ending is also a new beginning. 20. The eternal thread and the turning of all things. And so we have come to the end of these stories, and yet in truth, there is no end. For these tales are not merely things that happened long ago, far away, and forgotten. They are woven into the very fabric of the world we live in, visible in every season, every star, every blade of grass, and every quiet moment of the night. We have seen how the world began, how order rose from vastness, how light separated from darkness, how earth and sky took their places, and how the first beings came to dwell upon the mountains and in the deep places below. We have seen how power was won not by force alone, but by courage, wisdom, and the courage to stand for what is right. We have walked with the great gods upon the holy mountain, Zeus, who upholds justice with a steady hand, Hera, who guards the sacred bonds of home, Poseidon, whose deep waters bring both danger and life, Demeter, whose sorrow and love gave us the turning of the seasons, Apollo, whose light never fails, Artemis, who walks free beneath the moon, Hephaestus, who turns hardship into beauty, Aphrodite, whose love makes all things sweet, Athena, whose wisdom is stronger than any spear, Hermes, who guides all travelers safely, and Dionysus, who reminds us that joy is as necessary as bread. We have seen how mortals came to be, shaped from the good earth, gifted with a spark of divine fire, given freedom and choice, and with them the burden of responsibility. We have seen how Prometheus gave us warmth and light at a great price, teaching us that love is worth any suffering. We have seen Pandora bring us the fullness of life, its sorrows and its joys, and leave safe within our hearts the greatest gift of all, hope. We have seen the world washed clean and born again, proving that goodness may endure even when all else is lost. All these things are still true today. The earth still turns, and the seasons still come and go in their gentle order. The sun still rises each morning, bringing light and warmth, just as it did in the days of Apollo. The moon still walks the quiet sky at night, watching over all who sleep, guided by Artemis. The fire still burns bright upon the hearth, carrying the gift Prometheus gave, warming us still. The olive tree still grows, and the vine still ripens in the sun, and the grain still bows its head before the wind, and all the gifts the gods bestowed remain with us, unchanged through every age. But more than this, the gods live on within us. We carry Athena's wisdom when we pause to think before we act. We carry Hephaestus' patience when we work with our hands and strive to make things well. We carry Hermes' kindness when we welcome a stranger and help the traveler upon the road. We carry Demeter's love when we tend what is fragile and nurture what is growing. We carry the fire of Prometheus when we dare to stand for what is right, even when it is hard. And we carry hope, always safe within our hearts, given to us that we might never despair, however dark the night may seem. The ancients told these stories not only to explain the world around them, but to explain the world within them. They knew that life contains both light and shadow, joy and sorrow, struggle and peace. They knew that we are made of earth and of heaven both, fragile yet strong, mortal yet carrying something eternal within us. They taught us that greatness is not only in thrones and crowns, but in kindness, courage, honesty, and love. That even the gods themselves respect those qualities above all else. So as you close your eyes now, and drift softly into rest, remember this: the world is older and more wonderful than we can ever truly know. The stars still keep their ancient paths. The winds still whisper the names of the gods. And you, walking upon this fair earth, are part of that great, eternal story. You carry within you the same divine spark that was given to the first mortals long ago. You are loved, and watched over, and woven into the very fabric of all things. Rest peacefully now. The gods keep watch. The seasons turn. And all shall be well, forever and always. Thanks for listening to the Sleepy Universe. Feel free to watch our other videos about space, time and reality, or our historic journeys through past times. Take care and good night.